Shauna Dean, and this is Azur Tanya, aka Michael Dean, and we work together as a team. We work as representatives of the Iyani Inner Earth Council and the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elohai Elohim of the higher density fields. I won't get into who and what they are because I think most people have at least read something where you have an idea of what that is. All right. Now, this weekend we are introducing something called, well, it was starting out as the Dance of Life. But then it was upgraded to the Dance for Life for various reasons that have to do with our atoms. And we'll get into that tomorrow as far as the upgrade. The Dance for Life program is interesting. The Iyani have been promising that we would be able to get this translation off the Cloister Doratura plates for, they said about the end of February we would be able to get it. Well, we just got it down in the last 2 weeks. There was a whole bunch more information. There was more detail than they had let me know about. The Dance for Life program is part of a 4-step program that I just found out about 2 days ago, that there's like 3 other levels to this. It's an intensive program. It's simple enough where it's something that a person who would like to teach some of this information to other people, to like cold groups and that kind of thing, which can be very challenging if they haven't read Voyager's books and that kind of thing. It will be simple enough to do that, but also sophisticated enough where you're going to be teaching them something and you're going to be learning something as well. So people who have come to this, to the Dance of Life, to learn how to teach other people, because that's part of what this is about, this will be a good program for that. But it will also be a program that has a distinction of having a level of introductory material that far surpasses most other programs that are out there, most advanced levels. So you'll get the best of both worlds. You'll get the simplicity. And simplicity, when I'm talking about simplicity, is those of you who have followed this work at all know there are some very, let's say, controversial aspects to the information when we get into the forbidden and lost history, when we get into the current and contemporary drama and what we're walking around in the middle of. That information can be very intimidating to just about anybody that's coming in cold into one of the groups that hasn't read Voyagers or hasn't read any books. So it's going to be simple to present this information because it isn't getting in this course, and I'm going to even try for as I'm speaking with you. So if you find that you're used to me talking more about some of the agendas that are going on, we're taping this, and this tape will be available to other people, and we're hoping to have it as an introductory tape, that if anybody wants to teach, they could get the tapes or whatever, and that would help them teach, which means I'm going to try to keep off the tape any of the more controversial history and that kind of thing that would, kind of rattle somebody new coming in. Because the teachings that the Melchizedek Cloister are bringing through, I am so grateful to have these. These are the advanced level Master's Ascension teachings. I know that. I know it from memory because I remember different lifetimes in which I've had direct experience with them. These teachings work. It's a gift that they're being brought back. And it's a shame that right now on the planet so many people have been mind programmed into other dogmas that they just will immediately push away the truth that would actually set them free if they worked with it, if they find out about the controversial aspects first. We did it the hard way. The reason why we began, in 1999, we began with the Voyager's book releases. They were not kindergarten level, they were not introductory level, but they were not too hard because things were a little more calm in the world at that time. But we didn't begin with simple, here's like Ascension Training 101. We started with more sophisticated material because it was made to go out first to the indigo children who had 6-strand activation in their DNA templates and probably didn't know it, but they would be able to pick up that higher level information faster than regular mainstream people. It was interesting because in doing it that way, the people that would come to the workshops were the people that were the souls here, the sleeping avatars that were on their wake-up cycle. So we started to wake up the ones that have the higher soul contracts, the higher service contracts on the planet, by bringing the harder work through first. And it progressively got harder from there. I mean, it's harder in terms of sophistication and as far as detail and as far as, it can be overwhelming when you look at the body of work that's been given to us since 1999. Now it's time to make the work available to other people who aren't quite ready for some of the heavy stuff. People who are very happy with, sticking with the Bible or whatever other book, where if you say anything against the Bible, if it's not in the Bible, they don't want to know. Well, some of them are in a space where we have no disrespect for the Bible. In fact, what we teach is almost a melancholy little bit mourning toward the Bible, because the Bible used to be a beautiful book before the Council of Nicaea got a hold of it. So we don't have the teachings that we represent aren't against the things that other people are believing. But if they see certain parts of them without seeing the other parts of them first, some people get that idea, and then they get turned off. And if they used the information, just the ascension information itself, they would be able to make huge steps in progress in their own beings. They would be able to clear their fields. They will be able to start having a direct and personal connection to God, not just having to go to church and have somebody else make that connection for them. So this program is specifically to take the best of the ascension teachings and the progressive levels of them that we're going to be given. So we're going to learn new things as we go along too and be able to teach them, but in a framework that we don't have to get in to the more controversial subject matter. Like when we do the tapes, this part of the introduction, we can take that off the tape. It doesn't need to be there. We would like these tapes to be for you so you can take them if you want to give a class and you have a bunch of new people, friends and stuff coming over, but you know that they're attached to their different belief systems, but you think they could still like some of this. You could show them the tape, say, here, check this out, and here's what you do with this. So I will try my best to keep it that way. It's difficult because I'm used to speaking my truth as I know it, which means I've gone through this whole thing since 1999 with no holds barred. As soon as the information was given to me, I would pass it on to the people who cared enough to come and hear it, because I'm not the kind of person that likes to hold information back from people. If I know, I want to tell you. If it's something that's important, I would like you to know. So there was an agreement that the guardians and I had. Don't tell me anything you don't want them to know. If there's anything that's too scary or too big or they can't handle right now, that probably means I can't do too well with it either. And even if I can, if I know about it, I'm going to want to tell them. So we've worked this way, throughout the time. This isn't going to change, but what is going to change is having a sensitivity to the people who could benefit from the ascension teachings that we have to offer. And I know the quality of them, or I wouldn't have been able to speak them as I have for the last couple of years. But to bring these to the people in a way, they can learn about the other stuff. The books are out there. They want to learn about the history. They can go get one of the other books if they're really that interested. And if they want to get, upset and turned off, let them do it then, if that's what they need to do. But in the meantime, they might learn something that will be just the something that will take them into a place where if they're being messed with, or if they're really on a path that they think is the right one but is harmful to them, they will be able to make a better choice and have stronger fields and clearer consciousness to make that choice with. So the teachings will always be available publicly and to everyone, but putting them in a way where different levels of consciousness, where different levels of awakening can respond to them is what we're trying to do. Now, the Dance for Life course is interesting. So as I said, there are 4 levels of it. They had told me about the Dance for Life several months ago, but what they didn't tell me was it was part of a larger thing. There were 2 things they had mentioned to me. One was about a year ago, and they talked about the Maharata texts, which were the original translations made off of the CDD plates in 246,000 BC. They were books that were made then. They were written, handwritten. They weren't, they didn't have technologies in the same way we did. They had some advanced ones, but they didn't have typesetting and those kind of things. So these are handwritten volumes of pure translation in the Anahazi language of the CDD plates and all of their records. Now, they had told me, I think it was about a year ago, that I had the contract on several of the first books to bring through the English translations on the Maharata text. And they didn't tell me when that was going to start. The first one, the first Maharata book, and the books, when we say book, we're not talking about book. We're talking about what would be volumes here. And if you think about Iani and you think about inner earth people and you think about sizes of things and people, they're very big. They have more DNA. They're taller than we are. Their hands are huge compared to ours. Their books are huge compared to ours as well. All right. So I knew that the Maharata text teachings were going to be forthcoming at some point, but there were several other projects that were being worked on in the meantime. What I didn't know was that Dance of Life is part of the beginning of bringing through the Maharata texts, and I learned that in the last couple of days. Right? The Maharata texts, and I think later we'll go through a little bit of the history on them. And for this introduction, I don't think you're going to find out, I don't think this is going to be on the tapes that will go with like the teaching series that you want to take in. So I will just be able to kind of talk with you and about several different things this evening. But if you're going to order the tapes from this workshop that will be the teaching tapes for classes you want to give. That will start with tomorrow. So if I come in and say hi, introduce myself again as if I never saw you, know why. All right, because tonight I want to be able to speak with you a little more freely. I would also like to be able to cover with you tonight. Some of the people from Canada were the first to see this information. It's information that was put in the supplement to the Templar manual that has to do with the different attempts at bringing through Maharata text translations, when they were given, in what culture, in what time period, and what happened to them, basically. So we'll go through a little bit, if there's time tonight, a little bit of that, so you have some idea of the significance of this work. This workshop is the beginning introduction of the material contained in Book 1 of the Maharata text. Book 1, if I can find the title, is called Reinstating Personal Divinity. And it has, there's a whole new level of teaching. It's like even if we weren't trying to do the easy course so the beginners could come in, the beginners are actually coming in at the most advanced level, but without the controversial stuff that, will upset their belief systems before they even know what they're looking at. These teachings have to do with something called the radial body, which is a part of the anatomy, of our 15-dimensional anatomy, that we haven't talked about yet. The radial body is the key to manifesting. And we're going to cover what the radial body is in the Dance of Life course, or Dance for Life course. We're also going to do something, begin the process of what's called radial body activation. The radial body gets right down into, literally, the atoms that you're walking around with in your body. There's something called the neutron window, that in the center of the nucleus, in your neutrons, in your nucleus of your atoms, there's supposed to be a thing that works there called a neutron window, which is the part of the physical anatomy that allows certain frequencies and currents of energy to come through physically in the biology, that allows for cellular transmutation to take place. So you can not only activate your light vehicle, your Merkaba, around your body, but you can activate the ones inside of each of your cells, so you can take your body with you when you go on projection or go through a Stargate. We're going to begin learning this process, and it's fascinating information. When it was coming through, literally, it was on security clearance. Part of it's on security clearance. The other part has to do with this particular aspect of the teachings that we're going to go through and begin with Dance for Life. Weren't supposed to be given here until 2008. Here we go again, another acceleration. Yeah, it's been funny because of the drama that's taking place behind the scenes on the planet. There are things that are being done by the Christos races to help the planet get through the Stargate cycle, and then there are things being done to try to counter that. And then, by negative forces here that are trying to cause problems on the planet. I won't get too heavily into that. Most of you have some idea of what I'm referring to. Now, because of the frequencies that are supposed to be coming in, and then the counter ones that aren't supposed to be there, the next level of what's supposed to be there has to come in faster to try to undo the damage that was done by the frequencies that aren't supposed to be being sent here. What it's creating is literally leaps in time. What we're literally like doing 3 years for every one or so. So the information now has been very difficult. It's really bizarre this time to do the translation for this workshop. They'd promised me, you'll get Dance of Life, the end of February, you'll be able to release it. And it was supposed to be an easy program. Most of the techniques were going to be ones you've already been familiar with, that we're going to show all of us how to put them in a sequence and into a course of study that you could easily teach it to other people and also integrate it into your own daily life in an easy manner. Well, you're going to get that, but you're going to get a whole lot more. Oh boy. The information on here right now, as far as charts and graphs, we'll see what happens in the next 2 days, because I have about 500 pages of yellow pads with notes all over them. This was the hardest transmission from the plates that I've ever taken. It was part from the plates, it was part from the books, and part being stepped down by one of the Iani named Ma'a. The reason it was so difficult to bring the information through is this information, the plates themselves are time-coded, which means they carry certain frequencies that the planet's not supposed to have activated in the planet until a certain time. So if you're trying to get a certain level of information, but those frequencies aren't alive or awake in the planet yet, you'll get only what the planet can hold. So it was like, if you can imagine a transmission off the plates as a frequency, a cord of energy that comes in, and it runs through the DNA and through the language patterns, so I can get a linear, singular linear line of information out. It was like 10 different cords had come down, and then it was like somebody was cutting them. and they were fraying, where I had like 5 different pages going at once on 5 different subjects, and I don't think Az has ever seen me quite the state I was in the last week. I was exhausted. I would have to lay down after about a half an hour, like literally go horizontal to stabilize my fields again, because it was so difficult to bring the information through and sequence it. So the information, it's still coming in, but we've made quite a bit of progress. By the time, before you leave here, there are going to be 5 new techniques that are introduced they involve something called the Manau codes. M-A-N-U, Manu, Manau, however you want to pronounce that. The Manau codes are the highest or most powerful. Now, we've been working with Vecca codes before, which we'll talk about more in sequence as we go into this program. The Vecca codes are the most powerful mathematical programs that the body runs on. And when we use Vecca codes, like the Bivecca, the Trivecca, and now the Akasha that we got when we were in Peru, these do very particular things with the radial body. And we'll learn more about what that is tomorrow, too. But there are one set of codes that go with the 12 Vecca codes. There's a set of 12 Vecca codes, and we only have 5 of them that we've been given so far. The Manau codes are the codes that control the atoms, the atomic structure, the subatomic structure in the body. They're the codes that have the ability to open what are called primal forces. Now, in our other workshops, we have covered primal substance, we've covered primal order, we've covered primal currents, we've covered primal just about everything. So you get the basic idea of the structure of what your relationship to the universe is and how your anatomy fits in. There's one last element, which are called primal forces. There's a difference between a force and a current. The force is the consciousness, the living consciousness field that's part of God and that you're part of and that's part of you as well, that is behind all the rest. The part that sets intention and holds intention in the body. They are living forces of consciousness, and we are made of them. We're going to get into the primal forces this time and learn those currents. When we learn about the currents of primal force that are the blanket that the primal frequencies of our, like Kundalini frequencies and Kirish and Kundera, that they run on, the things behind those that support those, the living consciousness that our bodies are composed of. When we begin to explore these, we're going to find some amazing things. We're going to find out there's a lot of associations you'll be able to see, because there are names for all of these currents in each dimensional level of them. We begin with the Manu, the Mane, and the Ire. And if you look at those words, Ire is E-I-R-A. When it comes down into the lower frequencies, it becomes the Eros that some of the ancient teachings used to talk about. When you look at the spelling of the word Mane, M-A-N-A, that is the larger consciousness current, out of which a word called mana comes from. The mana has been in the ancient Hebrew text and several others as what is it? It's the thing that allows the body to go through stargates, to ascend. All right, so we're going to be starting to talk about these, and there are basically 15 primal forces. They're all out of 3 forces, and those 3 forces are all out of 1 force. But they break down into 15 forces of consciousness that are moving through us. There's systems out there that were taught by the Anunnaki people that were called the science of the rays. They have 7 rays in their world. That's what happens when you cut your DNA off at like the 11.5 and you can't pull the rest of them. We'll talk about the 15 rays and the fields that are up above and beyond those. Why it's useful to learn about these. We'll learn about where chi fits, where ki fits, where something called Reiki fits. And then when you put Reiki and ki together, you find out what Reiki is about. You'll learn about the word prana and where that fits. Also the word mira and maya, because these are names of currents of consciousness that flow through the body. So when we learn about radio body, when we learn about dance of life, we're going into the whole next level of what it means to be a being on the path of ascension. This is where ascension becomes a physical, real physical possibility. We're going to learn through this course how to build something called the Akasha Merkaba. Now we'll also find out what the word Akasha means, where that word comes from, what it means, because it goes back to those primal forces. The Akasha Merkaba is very special. I don't know, is there anybody that hasn't looked at anything on Merkaba? Anybody completely unfamiliar with Merkaba here? Wow, this is good. I love it. Okay, so most people know that when we talk about Merkaba, it's those fields around the body, and most people have seen enough things out there where they know it's this star tetrahedron shaped thing around the body. Well, that is a regular Merkaba. That is a biharmonic or two-harmonic Merkaba, which means it encompasses our system and it's parallel, and it brings those frequencies together to enable the body to move in between either of them. But then there's a place called inner Earth, which is a transharmonic time cycle, which means it has about double the frequency for every one of its dimensions. You can use a regular Merkaba to get through the gates and then out to somewhere else, but you cannot go in and stay into inner Earth, nor can you be in there for any period of time without having activated a transharmonic Merkaba. It has 12 planes altogether. It has, instead of having 3 planes on the top and 3 on the bottom, it has 6 on top and 6 on bottom. It is the equivalent of our 12th dimensional Mahanta Merkaba. We are going to be taught how to begin the process of building this particular Akasha Merkaba in our systems. This will be very useful to us for various reasons. First of all, it will allow the spiritual integration process to happen much more quickly. If that's the only reason you're here, is because you want to do your spiritual integration stuff more quickly. Even if that was your only objective, this will help you do that more quickly. However, if you aim higher and you'd like to possibly explore the reality of what it means to go through stargates at some point between now and, say, 2017, and you would like to, say, take a tour of duty in inner Earth and see what it's like, you would need an Akasha Merkaba to do this. There are certain things taking place on the planet right now that involve activating this level of Merkaba on the planet. Ideally, that wouldn't be taking place right now. In 2008, perhaps, but not right now. It's being done because there are, again, counter-strategies being used to try to create negative agendas on the planet that are affecting the planetary grids. So in order to balance that, the guardian races are assisting the planet to move into not only its regular Merkaba, but to go under the umbrella of the inner Earth Merkaba, which means this planet parts of this planet have to get to the point where they can sustain an Akasha Merkaba. We will help the planet do that as we learn to do it for ourselves, but we will also create for ourselves a huge protection field, as well as a huge field through which we can access higher and higher states of consciousness as we go along. There's a whole program that's going to come out of this. The Dance for Life is the first level of this program. Now, book 1 of the Maharata text, the whole text, we don't have time to take it down because their books are thousands of pages long, and there's 590 volumes in that set of books. For here until the next stellar activation cycle will get it done. But we're getting what's most important and most pertinent for the time period that we're in. They're giving us the most important information. The Dance for Life will be introduced here, and as soon as possible we'll have something like physically in writing for it. I'm hoping that it have something that resembles a chart pack by the end of this weekend. That depends on how fast, and if my computer doesn't crash again, tonight and tomorrow. If not, you're still going to learn this stuff. You will know what you need to do as far as when you go home. You will have a list of things and different techniques. Some of them you'll know, some of them will be new ones, and there's going to be a schedule, like a calendar. This will be very helpful. A calendar that basically suggests if you want to, develop the certain things that we're going to talk about developing, and you want to build this Merkaba, do this on a daily basis. Do this once a week, do this once a month, so we can have some idea of how to begin to. We have hundreds of techniques at this point in the teachings, and you can look at the teachings and go, yeah. Shall I take a year off from work and just start on, technique 1 or what? Yeah. All of the techniques are valuable. Some of them, even the early ones, are necessary if you're just coming into the work. So these would be techniques you would still need to use when you're teaching and those kind of things, even if you've gone beyond them, where you've activated those things and now you're on to other activations. Some of the things from the beginning teachings you need to activate before any of the other stuff will work. Like there are certain things that we'll go over this weekend that you have to have already done, like Emerald and Amethyst Awakening needs to be done at least once before any of the Vecca Code things are going to work in the body. So if you're teaching people how to work with Vecca codes, you have to run them through that long and laborious exercise just once. That will be enough. So the calendar will help you to organize. Okay, what do I do? How do I integrate this into my regular daily life where I have like a job and I have a family and like once in a while I like to sleep, and eat sometimes? It will give you basically something to follow that will ensure that if you do follow it, you will have a progressive increase in your growth, as far as the frequencies in your body, which of course will bring the frequencies of consciousness into your mind and your awareness. It will also begin a process that there are some other courses that are coming up too. One of them is called the Contact course, and that's going to be introduced on the Bermuda trip, and then as soon as there's the written materials on it, it will be available, through correspondence or whatever. For people who are not just in this for just the smaller level spiritual integration stuff, who are really in it for the big mission, and who desire to begin establishing personal contact with the Iani races, that's what the Contact course is for. So these courses, Dance of Life, is a minimum requirement. Before the Iani are going to even attempt to try to help you make contact with them, to work with you, they expect you to at least care enough to do the stuff that's going to be explained to you in Dance for Life. All right, so there's these programs are beginning to have a step effect, okay? You want to get to step 5, you got to take these steps first. Now, Dance of Life is going to be, or Dance for Life, I keep calling it Dance of Life because that was the original title before they let me know it was part of a larger thing. The next level is called the Dance for Love. The next one is the Dance for Freedom. And the final one is the Dance for Joy. Now, each one of these dances, dance refers to the dances your cells are doing and the dances that your electrons are doing around your nucleus in your cells. It refers to the dance of the primal currents and forces as they move through your body and your being. And it refers to using the technology of internal Merkaba, which is Merkaba that's generated through the natural circuitry that you were born with, that you're supposed to have, not external machines that make, Merkaba fields happen. There are stages that each of these dances are going to take us through. These are the dances of activating the levels of your own identity fully into the cellular structure. The radial body activation. It's a radial body activation course. The radial body was saved for last as far as they taught us about anatomy, they taught us about our chakra systems and our Kathara grid and all the things in between. The radial body is a part of the anatomy that controls the rest of those things with the Kathara grid. They work together to control the hologram that you're walking around in. The planet has a radial body, the galaxy has one, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get into what the radial body is more. Some of the people in Canada, when we went up to Canada for the Calgary workshop teaching Kathara, this is where this information came through. It was given to us then. So it's new, except for the people in Canada from here, that are here from Canada, will have heard a little bit of the radial body things before. The introduction to the radial body material in general that was given in Canada is in, I don't know if we have them here tonight, but they're here somewhere. The Calgary supplement that was made for the Templar manual does have the beginning teachings of those. Okay, some of those I might include in the paperwork that's going to be for Dance of Life, but probably most of what's in there won't be in Dance of Life, so you might be interested in looking into that if you want a preview on paper of what I mean by radial body. Now, the radial body has different levels to it. There are 5 levels of radial body. The radial body is a capsule made of certain things that create an etheric tissue that surrounds each of your huva bodies. Now, we've talked about huva bodies before, the 3-dimensional egg-shaped bodies that we actually live within. These are formed by the Merkaba fields that are spiraling around them that create these form constant spaces, these egg-shaped spaces that we exist with inside. Our matter exists within them. When we talk about the radial bodies, we're talking about this film or skin of frequency, of energy, that is literally the holographic refraction lens that allows the hologram to move through us, bounce into energy, and bounce back to give us a 3-dimensional holographic experience. It is also the living memory matrix. This is where our cellular memory, it's what our cells are connected to give it cellular memory. The radial body levels are the barriers, the tissue capsule barriers that need to dissolve in order for you to expand into your density 2 body. You would have to dissolve the radial body level that is around your density 1 body. Now, natural activation of Merkaba would allow that to happen if our Merkabas were acting naturally. But because the planetary Merkaba isn't acting naturally since 25,500 BC, there are problems that our Merkabas have when we just try to use standard Merkaba technologies. When we go into radial body technologies, the radial body tells the Merkaba what to do. All right, we're going right into the core of the programming between the Cathara grid and the radio body. This is where the instructions get set. And if there's any distortions there, they're going to come out everywhere else. So as we work with radio body technologies, we're first of all going to clear whatever is in the way in the DNA template, in the Cathara grid, in the Merkaba. But we're also going to not just clear. We're not just clearing radio body. We're activating radio body. Every one of our atoms is also surrounded by a radio body. The nucleus within the atoms is surrounded by a radio body. When we work with radio body technologies, we begin to remember how to speak to our atoms and how to hear them speak back in return, which means we progressively get more direct conscious control over. And it's co-creative control, because your body and the part of God that lives within it has its own connection to Source, and it's a co-creation. You can't just force your will on it like we're taught to do here. When we work with radio body, and we work with the Vecca codes to move the radio body and to speak its language, we are beginning to get the power over our own elemental selves again. The elements that form our bodies, the elements that form the earth bodies. When we begin to activate our radio bodies, we bring back the ancient arts where we used to be able to speak to the elemental kingdoms, where people knew fairies were real, and they could feel and see the water spirits, and they could communicate with the leaves and the trees and find out every one of them had a different identity, and a tree branch was like a big family. All right? Some of the wonderful things that will come to us when we begin with activating our radial body means we're getting these currents not just of energy, but of pure consciousness. The mano, the ire, the mane. We are going to begin to bring those back into the cellular structure of our body. These are the teachings that for many thousands of years now, the Illuminati races have done their absolute best to make sure nobody could get a hold of them. And the teachings that they have, because they were all fighting with each other, nobody has a complete set of any of them, so nobody knows how to access any of the currents directly. These are the natural currents, the part where you and God are together and always have been. You can embody that, and it's embodied through these currents of consciousness, these primal forces that are the forces of God will, the will of God, the will of Source that runs through you and that is in you and as a part of you. So I'm excited about it. I've been feeling, as I was working with bringing through this information, and my little scribble notes that are all over the place right now, I could feel that just as the information was coming through, it activated. There was things that were activating because I started to feel just a depth come into my own perceptions, a depth that I had a cellular memory about from having in other time periods, but for the life of me, couldn't feel that depth here, and I felt very imprisoned in my physical body because of it. There was a level of feeling at one-ment with the universe and with the planet and with the ants and the trees and the clouds that I remember having, but I have not been able to fully embody here. I've done it to some degree. Well, I've begun to feel, as these frequencies were coming through over the last few weeks, piece by piece by piece, and I'd take down the written words, I would begin to feel the openings happening. I've been more and more and more been feeling a really interesting sensation of being very, very consciously aware of the space between my atoms and the spaces between my cells. Sometimes I could feel the air moving through them. That's a new one. I felt that once on the beach during an ordination, I think it was, where I actually felt like the wind was blowing through my cells, and it was the strangest feeling. So just the information itself, as we learn this information, it is beginning the process of awakening the mano within ourselves, the mane within ourselves, the ire within ourselves. Collectively, those three currents are called the ek, the ka, and the sha, the akasha. So that's where the word akasha comes from. We're going to progressively move through exercises. There's 5 new ones that are coming through between sometime tonight after we leave here and the end, before the end of Sunday, that are going to be given, and we're going to be shown how to incorporate them with the techniques we already know. And most importantly, we're going to be given at least the rudimentary step-by-step. Here's how you would teach somebody about this stuff, right? Where you'll see some of the things that you already know about, but you'll see them in a light where they're talked about in terms of these primal forces. All right, where if we're going to talk about chakras, or if we're going to talk about the Cathara grid, or if we're going to talk about part-Akai, part-Akay, and part-Akam, it will be in the context of these primal forces and what those relationships are. So you'll be able to see the stuff you already learned, where it fits with this, but you will also be able to see how to teach somebody the whole caboodle, where you don't have to go back to the other books you had to teach them that stuff to get them up to where you can teach them this, where you can teach them it together. So I will do my best, and Az will do his best too, because, by the way, even though he's very quiet about it, like to say, he is officially in open communication and receiving transmissions from the plates. So it's like he's worked very hard, to get there. He's had to go through some very fast activations in the last year or so, and he's activated as a speaker, as they say. Yep. Yeah, there was some other information that was given to us recently as far as speakers go. And it's interesting. Speakers are like, if you've been with us for a while, you have some idea of what that means, but we didn't even know what that contract really fully meant. We've been learning as we go along. Probably on Sunday, I think, I will begin to share some of the information that was provided really just for this group they call speakers. And there's another group that's called what do they call it? The Inner Council, the Inner Earth, the Iani Inner Council. There's a group of 12 people that have the responsibility stuff happening here, where the speakers are part of them. You have speakers, you have flame holders, you have flame keepers, you have all sorts of different things. These are contracts that people were birthed in with. We'll talk a little bit about those on Sunday. We all have some level of agreement to be here. You wouldn't be a part of this work. And the people who come to you that are interested in you teaching them something about this work, you will not have somebody appear that does not have some type of contract in relation to this work. You may have lots of the ones that have fallen angelic contracts coming over, because they have contracts to try to get as much information of you as possible, or hopefully to take you with them, right? But you may also have wonderful people here that are, here to learn. You're going to help those people wake up. It will help to understand the structure, especially if we're going to go into things like the contact course. It will help you to understand the structure of interrelationship and distribution of responsibility that takes place in Inner Earth, in the Inner Earth councils. There are people who have, let's say, bigger jobs, and some that have littler jobs, but there's not a hierarchy as far as, well, I'm president, so I'm better than you, and that kind of stuff. They don't do that stuff. If somebody has an important position of authority in Inner Earth, first of all the other ones respect them tremendously. Why? Because there will be a level of responsibility and potential, if necessary, sacrifice, personal sacrifice of what you'd like to do as opposed to what's good for the whole and what's good for the group, that goes with every step of authority in position that's given. So at the end of this, there have been several things solidified as far as contracts go. And we were given the official announcement as far as who's who and who's doing what job, as far as the inner guys that are working directly with the Inner Earth Iani now. And there's been a lot of confusion and a whole lot of, let's say, false claims from beyond the edge that have been coming through ever since we introduced, like the fact that there's speakers and, people are talking to the Iani, a whole host of channels that swear they're talking to Ma'a, and they're not, So there's a clarification that's going to be done that has to do with the blue flame, the gold flame, and the violet flame, and 3 speakers contracts, and what's going down with them. What we'll probably do is simply read to you the information as it was given to us, as the transmission came through. It was how we were notified about what the status is of these jobs and this kind of things. This will take us into something, too, that will be better off talked about Sunday, that we introduced with the Regent's Consulate today. It will be a thing that we go off the tape as far as the training tapes for Dance of Life for at the end on Sunday. That has to do with the circumstances that are taking place right now and why it's a very timely period to begin the Dance for Life programs. Now, the Dance for Life programs are going to be the first set of technologies that you've been using, many of you have been using the technologies as we've been, given them. These have prepared you to use the next higher level ones. People that come into Dance for Life there will be some of the old technique that they will have to be able to do before they can plug into this. But they don't have to go through like 2 years of learning all about it like you might have if you've been following the program. But the Dance for Life program is going to do, there are 3 parts of it. I don't have any Mylars tonight at all because the computer decided to crash about 5 minutes before we're ready to leave. That's why we're late tonight. We were trying to pull these few pages that have like my outlines and things, so I could at least put, have something here for me to look at, so I don't lose track of myself. And the computers, they all shut down. We have 3 of them, in the house in different rooms, and something happened with the line because it power surged or something, and they all went. So then we had to go through the process of, they came back fortunately, so I got this. But anyway, I just want, the reason I don't have anything to put up here is because this information has been given to me in the last probably a day and a half on scribbled little yellow pads, and there's just been no time because we had to do a regents meeting this morning, like early or at noon. It started today, so you will have some paperwork by tomorrow. There will be some things that I'm producing. We may have to do a Kinko's run at some bizarre hour, like tomorrow morning, and it'll come in by the afternoon. But there's a basic structure of things that's happening with the dance of life. The way it's been described is mastering the Nada Huva body. Now, we talked about the Huva bodies in other courses, like in Tangible Structure of the Soul. The Nada Huva body is the dimension 1, 2, and 3 levels of yourself. It includes your physical and subatomic body and your etheric body around it. It includes your D2 emotional elemental body. That's where your emotions come from, what you call your emotions. And also, it's called emotional elemental because this is the part of you that composes the consciousness that makes up like the water molecules in your body and all the little elements in your body. And the D3 mental body, which is the part of you that gives you what you would call your egotistical focus. And the ego isn't bad unless it's applied in a negative way. That's the part of you that looks out from the 3rd dimensional frequencies to see the 2nd dimensional frequencies as solid in your hologram. So one of the biggest and most difficult parts, I've met a lot of people who have done a lot of higher activations and those kind of things, but they have not been taught how to activate their bodies, so they can't anchor any of those higher activations. This is where you find people that get really buzzy. Do you ever meet buzzy people? Where they meditate lots, a lot of time they're vegetarian because they've been taught that, it's terrible to eat animals and those kind of things. And they tend to be very, very thin because they don't eat enough, and because they have so much frequency running through them, it's amazing that their feet are still on the ground. There's a problem happening. There's trickery being done in some of the teaching circles, and the people teaching it usually don't realize. They think it's the right thing, to teach. They're teaching higher activation, higher body activation, with 4th chakra activation. That's the astral body, okay? They're teaching open the heart. Everything's focused on the heart center. They're leaving the rest of your body here to rot, and they're teaching you to activate your astral body because they want to take it someplace, but it makes you very, very buzzy. You kind of go, you can almost hear the sound of your molecules ringing off each other in your ears, right? It's a great space to be in if you can balance it. But if you get there and the rest of you is going, and your body's like down there someplace, most people that go through this phase, and some people will pass through this phase just as they're learning to balance frequencies, and it's not a negative thing. But it goes into a negative thing when this barrier starts to happen between chakra 4 and chakra 3. The frequencies are coming to here, then they're going this way. They're not going down into the lower chakras. They're not clearing what's called the shadow body, which is something we're going to learn about. Sunday we're going to do tangible structure of the shadow to find out where that lives so we can root it out and heal it and bring it back into ourselves in a way that it's going to work with us instead of against us. So there's a lot of buzzy things happening right now as far as people being taught how to do activations that are activating their higher chakras from 4 and up. And they're also activating the base chakra, so they can skip over chakras 2 and 3, which means skipping over DNA strands 2 and 3. That means the mental body on strand 3 and the emotional body on strand 2 are being left just as they are, and these little circuits of energy are running down. This makes a connection between the Kundalini energies that are focused at the base of the spine and that run through the base chakra, so you can get an anchor into somebody's body. And it gives an astral field. They can access through astral field to the 4th chakra and then anchor it down into the base chakra, literally bypassing the 2 chakras in between. This is what happened. This is what you're going through if you get the buzzy stuff, okay? The 2 chakras, chakras 3 and chakra 2, are not integrating the frequencies that are coming in from higher. There's a bypass going on. Most people will experience this at some time when they wake up because there's something in the planetary grids. that is creating this effect. There's implantation, as we've talked about in some of the other courses, in the planetary grids that create an exaggeration and a mutation on something called the fight or flight instinct. All right. The fight or flight instinct, as it's known on the planet right now, is not a natural instinct. It is a result of frequencies polarizing in ways they're not supposed to when they hit the beginning of chakra 2 and the end of chakra 3. There's reasons why certain teachings were being given here. They were teaching you to bypass those 2 chakras, and they would have teachings that went with them like, oh, don't worry the mind. The mind is a lower thing. You need to focus on the spirit. Like, forget about your mental body. Leave that alone. Leave it right there. Because the mental body and the emotional body have been the areas in our bodies that are anchoring the shadow, that are holding it in there. And if you really ran the frequencies through the way they're supposed to be run on a D12 subfrequency, which is a 12-code pulse, it would clear those problems. So the buzziness comes from when we're either having somebody help us activate in ways that we're better off without, or when we're activating naturally and running into that part of ourselves that is anchoring the shadow. The shadow is not just a psychological phenomena. There's been a lot out on shadow therapy and those kind of things in the last 10 years, and starting with, I think, psychiatry before it went into, New Age, things like that. The shadow is not just a manifestation of certain unassimilated portions of our own consciousness that are kind of stuck in our subconscious mind and try to steal our power sometimes, and you have power struggles inside with the shadow, and it can do all sorts of weird things. If you have no really developed shadow, it can make you into something like a schizophrenic person. People who are suffering from these diseases, these are shadow diseases. These are where other parts of the being are trying to take the energy away from the personality and try to take over the body. It's like you're trying to self-possess yourself. A part of yourself that you left behind a while back that has different ideas than you do decided it wants the body and it's going to get rid of you. So you have power struggles going on inside of yourself. Everybody has power struggles inside of themselves to some degree because of the implantations that we're suffering from on this planet right now. Because of especially one called the eye of the jackal. The eye of the jackal is connected to things called the eyes of Horus. All right. The eye of Elohim, the eye of Yahweh, the eye of Metatron. These are names of implants that don't just affect this planet. They affect the halls of Amente stargates. Probably on Sunday we'll talk a little bit more about the larger picture of where those elements of shadow fit in. What we will be working through with on Saturday and Sunday, we will be working with technologies, those radial body technologies. That is where the power is to be able to clear and integrate this shadow. You can't cut your shadow off, because if you do, you just divorced half of your energy. If the process of ascension occurs by integrating your energy and you cut half of it off, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay here. You're not going to get through a stargate. You might get your body through. Your body will not be able to handle the frequency. You'll turn up as consciousness that fragments back into the field down here. So shadow healing is essential to the process of ascension, to the process of freedom. Shadow is interesting. Shadow is kind of scary when you look at it in the terms that it has been for the last 10 years, where it's this part of the psyche that kind of like, no matter how good you try to be, it comes up and tries to bite you, Like there's a part of myself. I have my good little angel self on one shoulder and my bad little devil self on the other shoulder. We've been living this duality, this level of duality in our psyches. That's like the part that says, I'm going to eat healthy this week. I'm going to do really, really, really well. And the other part says, chocolate cake. Now. And you're like, the impulses are caught like this. One leg wants to run that way, one wants to run this way. This goes everywhere. It goes into relationships. Oh, this person's a really nice person. This could be a really good relationship. Shadow goes, oh, look at that. Over there. Oh, that looks better, doesn't it? So you're constantly in a state of pull and push within yourself. We're living a duality complex because of these unnatural implantations in the planetary grids that come up and direct our DNA in ways it wasn't supposed to be directed. Animals are living this too. They're fight or flight instincts. That used to be once upon a time the lions and lambs did lay down with each other, and that was a good thing. They were friends, where you could have parakeets and hamsters and cats playing in the yard together. They didn't try to eat each other. There's been an over-exaggeration of polarity on this planet because of these problems. And we are living manifestations of what that means. So many times we end up stuck in our own psyches saying, I don't know which way to go, because you have all these different impulses inside. Let's say your emotions want to do one thing, but your rational mind wants to do the other, right? What do I do? Heart or head, heart or head, heart or head? Why do the heart and the head so often want to do different things? If it feels good, do it, one of them says. The other says, yeah, but it's obviously not the right thing to do. But if it feels good, do it anyway. Feeling. This is one of the things we've been taught in the New Age movement. If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, that means it's not good for you. So trust your feelings. You got to trust your feelings, which is a core truth that is actually good for you. If your emotional body and elemental body isn't twisted up into extra duality. Right now, you could encounter something that was absolutely awful for you, that would, crash your DNA and get you absolutely in the opposite place you want to go, and you might feel an absolute resonance. Oh, this feels good. Why? Because your implant likes it. Okay? Because the eye of the jackal says, yes, that's family. All right? Yeah. It's important as we grow to learn to trust our feelings. However, before we can do that in a way that's good for us and our feeling body, we need to be able to clear our feeling body. We need to be able to understand where this conflict comes from in the self, why the head wants to go in one direction, the heart wants to go in another, and very often the spirit wants to go in a completely different one. We're chopped up in little pieces inside our own psyche. This can be scary when you think of psyche, mind. Oh yeah, that intangible but obviously very real part of ourselves that's somewhere. If you can't find it and you can't see it, how are you going to fix it? It's very scary the way psychology teaches us about these things and how they approach it. There's something called the subconscious mind. Where is it? Who knows? But it's there, obviously. We see it by its effect. Okay? The shadow is in the subconscious mind. Where? We don't know where that is, but we know it's there. Right? Okay, how are we going to fix the shadow? If, A, we don't know where it lives. Like, nobody has its address. We just know it's there, and it comes out of its house and does things and then runs back and hides again. It can make us very frightened of ourselves. There are so many people out there that are going through activations right now, DNA activations. They do not know about DNA activations. Nobody, they are in circles that don't talk about that. That's not real to them. But meanwhile, their hormones are going wacky. Some of them are on hormone therapy because they're getting heat rushes. They'll be 20 years old and they think they're going through menopause because they're getting all sorts of heat rushes. People are getting manic depression. People are getting symptoms of bipolar, progressive, more and more advanced bipolar disorders. All of this is because their DNA is activating. And they go into the psychiatry area for help. And the psychiatrists are having the same type of issues. And what a psychiatrist will do if they're having those problems is bring out the big pharmaceutical book and find out, okay, what fixes that one? Because they don't know any better either. Right now, we have an opportunity to learn the address of the shadow, where it lives. It is not just a psychological phenomenon, just as we've learned in the last couple of years, that there is a tangible structure to the soul, a specific order, and these things exist in certain places, in space, in time, and in your body. Well, there's tangible structure of the shadow, and we're going to get into that on Sunday probably, unless maybe at the end of Saturday. The shadow is connected directly to your atoms. It's connected, especially in certain parts of your atoms. There are things in atoms, in the nucleus of atoms, that are called neutrons. Neutrons are a key particle, or subatomic particle. They're a key particle in the body's ability to run the higher frequencies and the higher forces to be able to undergo cellular transmutation. There's one particular mutation that's demonstrated in science. Now, I think there's only one, from what I've heard, there is only one type of molecule that does not have neutrons in the atoms, in the nucleus, and that is the hydrogen atom. Now, interestingly enough, and by no coincidence, I'm sure, guess what elements hold together in the DNA chains, hold the DNA chains together? The hydrogen bond at the center of each of the ladders. It's through the natural hydrogen bonds that what's called turnstile DNA, which is a natural set of transient DNA that pops on into activation, that allows more chemicals to be produced in the body, that allows for physical transmutation through stargates to occur. There's been a mutation done on this planet in the elemental kingdom that we're carrying that literally has taken the neutrons out of the hydrogen atoms in our DNA bonds. when we begin to work with radio body, healing, clearing, and activating, we're going to be putting back what's missing. Now, the shadow lives in the spaces where things that were supposed to be aren't. It also lives in certain parts of the elements within our body. Our water molecules hold part of the shadow. There are certain metals in the body, elemental metals in the body that are holding the shadow. The shadow is a part of our coding, our own DNA templates that are in reversal. They're running the opposite mathematical program to what our natural divine blueprint is. The shadow progressively draws energy. We draw energy in from the planet, from the universe, and the shadow draws energy from us. And progressively, the body deteriorates much more rapidly here than it was ever supposed to, because the shadow is taking the energy, and it's actually a part of your consciousness that's getting twisted, that's getting messed up and confused and going into base patterns of fear and lack and all of those things. And it creates a set of impulses within the self that can very often control or take charge of the emotional body, and if it gets really strong, can take control of the mental body and the action body sometimes, where you become afraid of yourself. Do you ever have like those days where just something came over you and you felt really lousy, and then you just lost your temper? Some people have temper problems, They have a short fuse, as it said. They blow quick, right? This is a person who has the shadow that's trying to get control of them at that time, the part of the consciousness that's convoluted and twisted, and it's trying to take control of the body and override the organic stabilizing personality. Your shadow self isn't evil. Your shadow self is a part of yourself that's in distress. It's been victimized by certain conditions on this planet that were not organic. So it's a part of yourself that you need to realize is there. And nobody's going to run away and say, I don't have a shadow, I'm impeccable. I've met a few that are doing this, and they, yeah, right, you should see what your astral body's doing right now. They'll be standing there going, looking at me like, how dare you see me? I know you see me, this kind of stuff. We could go through let's say the cosmic body wash and become pure and impeccable right now. Flash off into the other worlds, get totally purified. Flash back on here, we got a shadow again, because the planetary grids have the twist, this filter that polarizes energy where it's not supposed to be polarized. This eye of the jackal is a planetary implant. And what that does is manifest. As soon as our consciousness and our energy comes back down into form here, it will put that back in. What can override that and set it back to its natural pattern is working directly with the radio body that we're going to learn how to do, beginning tomorrow with the Dance for Life program. So we're going to meet our shadows, and we're going to learn to love them and bring them home. As we do this, we're setting ourselves free from a level of manipulation that most people don't realize is there. The eye of the jackal, the eye of Metatron, the eye of Elohim, the eyes of Horus, and several other eyes that are running around out there. These are refraction polarization lenses. They're an external technology that have been put in the planetary shields of certain planets, and Earth is one of them. They literally polarize the energy in the planetary body, so anything on it is going to get polarized. We can override those implants, that effect in our bodies, by using radio body healing. All right. Now we're even going to have to approach it as healing, like Cathara healing. That's directly, let's heal here. Healing is going to be a byproduct of radio body activation. So what we're going through here will begin the process of getting a handle on ourselves. If we're going to be masters of anything, if we're going to be spiritual masters, you have to be body masters as well. There's people that run around out there, and you can tell their bodies are just like falling apart around them and holding like really, really low and negative energy while they're claiming to be, I'm avatar so-and-so. My body's not perfect. I tell that to people, say, oh, here it goes. Yep, collecting miasms again. Oh, geez, I have to go after that shadow thing again. Now, people that think they're above and beyond the shadow are in trouble because they're denying that part of themselves. So they're not going to be able to fix it. They're not going to be able to heal it. As we begin to acknowledge that we have this part, and we don't have to pick it apart with a psychological comb. I mean, if you go to psychology to help with the shadow, you can spend from now until your next 5 lifetimes on the couch and not get to the bottom of it. How many bad episodes from this life and others do you have to go through before you find the core of that problem so you can release that issue, whatever it was? And then what's the issue after that one? The shadow collects the issues It's the collector of all those parts of yourself that felt lousy, that reacted poorly, that was picked on, that played victim-victimizer games. Your shadow collects these parts of self. And it's these parts of self do direct you from a subconscious level. You cannot get to be a spiritual master if you do not master and heal the body. Now, unfortunately for this planet, people have not had access to the frequencies to do that easily, or to the technologies to know how to do it, to remember how to do it. This is why the gifts that we're being given right now by the guardian races are so precious. They're teaching us, if we're willing to learn, how to get a hold of mastering our bodies. The hardest one is the Nadahuva body. It's the lowest body, the dimension 1, 2, and 3 body. But this is where so many of the thousands and thousands of years of mutations have built up to form a shadow part of ourselves, where a part of our water molecules are working against us, where a part of literally the amino acids and proteins that our cells are structured on, part of them are working against us. Fortunately, part are working for us as well. They're the parts that still have integrity, where they can still run the higher frequencies in the right way. We can learn to amplify the parts of ourselves that are not in shadow in order to progressively heal the shadow. Because these people feel horribly, horribly victimized by the evil ones over in the United States who have taken their culture and their way of life that's built around service to the God they believe is the only one away from them. They see us as a direct threat to their spiritual integrity and identity. There are political games that have gone down for ages here that pit one group against the other. And what's interesting is the ones who act worst as victimizers usually are doing it because they feel like they're victims. There's a whole game being run here, and it's a game that runs between interpersonal relationships too. We've seen it happening in some of the groups where the Azurite temple groups are kind of like polarizing, like this one little faction over here and there's another over here, we don't like you anymore, we don't like him either. This kind of stuff, this nonsense is going on. This is because we're having activations in the planetary grids now that are calling up more of the programming, amplifying the programming of the Eye of the Jackal. The Eye of the Jackal is a lens. It is a lens that bends and refracts energy in a way that is not natural. The Eye of the Jackal is placed in Earth's shields at the level of D1.75, so almost up to D2. In your body, that would be just a little bit below your second chakra, where your second chakra starts. The Eye of the Jackal lens is also a receiving station. It receives broadcasts of psychotronic programs that have been going on here for centuries, that are literally standing waveforms that just like we can transmit information on sound waves here, and we can transmit it on light waves here. Well, they are programs that have been controlling and directing the emotional bodies of humans, the fight-or-flight instinct in humans. This is why we run around in circles in trying to get free and realize, okay, we're creators. We don't have to experience lack anymore. When we try to teach our minds how to do this, our minds can be fine with it, but our bodies go, oh my God, the rent's coming up in 2 days. What am I going to do? Oh my God, I can't make enough money to pay my rent. I'm not going to have a place to live. This whole set of patterns that runs our economic structure, that runs our spiritual structures, our traditional spiritual structures. If I don't, I'll go to hell. These are all fear-based patterns. These are stuck in the shadow, and the shadow is running the patterns because somebody else is running the shadow. The shadow is not just a part of you that fell by the wayside or made some bad decisions and became what it did. It was a part of you that was hijacked, and that is being hijacked psychotronically through this particular lens apparatus that's in the planetary grids. So it's not something you have to feel ashamed or embarrassed about, that you have a shadow. It's not something you want to hide in the closet like a skeleton. You don't need to. It's a part that needs to be healed. When we work with the technologies that we're going to get into over this workshop, we are going to progressively heal that shadow, and we're going to reclaim the memory that shadow holds as well. Right now we walk around in pretty much amnesia. Even the most awake of us, it is hard to remember who you were before you came here. It is not easy to find your incarnational memory. Where the heck is it? I'm supposed to have cellular memory. Hello down there. Anybody in there have this one? It's very difficult to bring this information up. You might get it in the dream state at first. You might get little snapshots. Some people have more of it open than others. But there's whole blocks of our race memory and our personal memory that are locked within the shadow. So as we begin to heal and integrate the shadow, one of the things that will be a byproduct of that process is beginning to remember more of who we are, who we were, except were implies you're not anymore. And time is simultaneous. So if you find out you were Cleopatra, you still are. That doesn't mean you have to be her here. That was one of the costumes you wore, right? One of the interesting things that's going to happen with people as DNA activations continue is that they're going to start getting more of that memory coming back up. But if they don't know how to balance it, you may find Cleopatras running around. You may find people identifying so much with one of the past lifetimes or one of the future ones. There's certain groups that do that, where they like literally wear ET costumes and act like ETs because they know in the future they are, right? There's a balance an identity needs to find when you're integrating yourself as an avatar or even as a soul. Yes, you have multiple cells that live in different bodies in different time frames. You have one right here, right now. This is the one you're focused in. The rest is you too, but you don't need to make this one important by adopting the identity of one of the other ones. It doesn't matter. You may have information there that's great, like if you happen to be King Tut, great, because that means you probably know where certain things are hidden and certain ancient records are hidden because there were things hidden in those days. So there's advantages to allowing that memory to come through. But you need to realize when you go through these processes that you, who you are right now, even if you've been taught since the time you were this big that you're worthless, you're not worth anything, you'll never be good enough, you look at your job and you say, boy, this really stinks. I thought by the time I was 30 I might be doing something I like to do, where you can really feel down on yourself in this time frame because of the cultural programmings and the struggle just to express yourself and be yourself here. You need to give yourself permission to, no matter who you were, it doesn't matter if you found out where you were like some high priestess from another lifetime. Most of us that were indigos were. So it's like, oh yeah, hi, It's like, don't be impressed if somebody was a high priestess in another lifetime because you probably were too, so you don't worry about it. But it's important to have enough sense of your identity here and realize that you right here have a contribution to this whole self you call your avatar. You have a contribution to make right here and now. So don't let one of the other identities, because it might be more romantic or it might have been in a prettier time period or you might have had more freedom or you might have been rich and you're poor in this lifetime. Don't let that identity overshadow who you are now. When we begin to work with shadow, you will start to find yourselves. You'll start to find pieces of yourselves. Some of the pieces you won't be particularly happy with. If we could have like a self-conference, right, where we invited all the other ones from their other time frames to come to a workshop where we could all meet ourselves, you would be amazed at the family feuds that would go on. It is amazing when you start. Not all of yourselves are going to agree with you, and you're not going to agree with all of them. There are parts of you that are working out different issues to get you to where you are now, where you already know you don't want to look at it that way. But in that time frame, you did look at it that way. How do you know not to this time? Because you learned it doesn't work from that one. But if you met that self right now, you could have one heck of an argument. And it would, it's not going to say, well, excuse me, I know you're me. I don't care if you're me. I'm going to do what I want to anyway. These things are going to begin to come. They're going to come to the planet because of the frequency activations that are taking place here that will activate the DNA. But they're going to come most rapidly to indigos because indigos have more sensitive DNA templates. When you begin to work with radio body and healing and activating radio body, it will expedite that process. It will also expedite the process of starting to, if you're not having them already, starting to initiate out-of-body experiences and those kind of things, where you find them happening spontaneously when you go to sleep and those kind of things, sometimes when you're awake. Usually your soul is controlling that, so you don't have to worry about it happening when you're driving a car. And you come back and say, oh dear, what did I do? These are things that will, all of these things will be accelerated as we go through this program. And this is the first level of the program. This is the Nada-Huva body integration or activation, the radio body activation that goes with the Nada-Huva body. So through this, we will learn how to. And it's not going to, you're just going to learn a workshop and you get fixed and bang, there, you're fixed in that workshop on to the next level. There's a program of learning to use frequencies and technologies that if you're really serious about really wanting to achieve and take these steps, that you will use them. There's not going to be anybody sitting on your shoulder saying, you skipped out on Tuesday. I know you did. You can't cheat in this program because the only person who's cheating is yourself. You direct it. If you don't get results, whose fault is that? Take a guess. Yes, we have to take responsibility for the fact that two things. One, if we're not doing the technologies as they were suggested, or as often as they are suggested, we will get in out of it, what we put into it. There's another factor that needs to be considered, and here's a responsibility factor that everybody at some point is going to have their time of reckoning with, be it here or once they cross over, because you might as well like have your life review here instead of waiting until your body dies and getting over there and have to do it anyway. We are... Oh, I just got it. Bless you. Somebody just said something. Wait a minute, excuse me. Yeah, we got a live one here. What? Okay. All right, they're telling me Ma'a's here. Ma'a has been here all day. Ma'a is one of the, the senior members of the Iani Inner Council. I just got interrupted and basically said, I'm going on tangents, let's not do that now. Give him a rundown on radio body, and then he would like me to turn it over to you, because you haven't the exercise that you want to run with them. I lose track of time, and I just keep going. It's like a wave that just keeps moving. So anyway. All right, I will give you a quick rundown on, we have the Dance for Life, which is Nadahuva body mastery, and Density 1 radio body activation. This will build what's called the Akasha Merkaba Phase 1, which is called the Manu Merkaba. All right, there will be, part of this is this whole program. When you have the 4 levels of this program that are the first book of the Mahabharata, there are 144 lessons of mastery. So in Dance for Life, we'll have the 12 lessons of mastery, we'll have the 12 attitudes of mastery, and we'll have 12 actions of mastery. Now, when we get down into the next one, which will eventually be volume 2 of this Mahabharata book, the Dance for Love, this is mastering the Alpha Huva body, which is the soul body level. It's the Density 2 radio body activation, and it deals with the astral body, the archetype D5, and the angelic body, Akasha alignment, aligning those with the Akasha. And the Akasha, to look at it in an easy, quick way, you could call it the God seed, all right, the part of you that is always attached and a part of God. Now, when we get into the Dance for Love, and I think we're going to introduce that in Greece. Oh, what a nice, just hit me, that's a nice place, it's supposed to be romantic. Yeah, all right, thank you, I didn't know that, that just came together. Greece, the Dance for Love. Okay. We're going to be doing Akasha Merkaba Phase 2 activation, which is the Imanu Merkaba. There are 4 levels of this Akasha Merkaba, and that's the soul integration level. This will cover the 12 vehicles of mastery, the 12 postures of mastery, and the 12 responsibilities of mastery. The next one is the Dance for Freedom. This is mastering the Beta Huva body, or the Density 3 body. It's Density 3 radio body activation. This activates and clears and aligns with the Akasha, the catheric, the monadic, and the chariatric bodies of the Oversoul body, of the Density 3 Oversoul body. It is Akasha Merkaba Phase 3, the Emmanuel Merkaba. And this will have the 12 tools of mastery. This is probably going to get fun by the time we get here, because they're starting to show us some tools that we can create, like things that, facilitate, to help us. Everybody here, most people here, like to make stuff. We're in 3D, and we like something we can hold in our hand and let it be our friend to help us with our integration. We're going to learn how to do some of these things in here. There'll be tools given, some inside tools that you can create things on the outside that will help, use those tools. We'll have the 12 insights of mastery and the 12 applications of mastery. And I can't wait to read this. I'm telling you, because you ask me what these are right now? I don't know. But I will by the time it's time to teach the course. All right. So we're all learning together. That's what's kind of nice about this program. I mean, when I sit down to take translation from the CDD plates and, having Ma'a hanging out in my mentor space saying, no, it's this. Like, if I can't pull a certain part, he'll downstep it for me. It's no different than you sitting in a workshop trying to say, okay, what did she say 2 minutes ago? What was that? Okay. I have to learn this the same way you do and integrate it into myself in order to just, bring it to you. So we're learning it together. The final one. Now, the Dance for Freedom, they haven't said when that's going to be, but I think that's France. Is that the France trip? Now, that doesn't mean that these are the only places they're going to be. If you can't afford to come to France, or you can't afford to come to Bermuda or Greece. It means that that's where they'll be first introduced, and that will be the program, that's going to be given with the people that come there. But from that program will come the correspondence course and whatever materials come from that will be made available to anybody, so they can get it as soon as possible. As soon as we can get it down, workshops have an advantage and the trips have the advantage of that's when you get it live very often. You might not have much paperwork. You'll get more paperwork if you wait for the correspondence course, but you get the frequencies live as they're coming through and coming in, and you get them first. So this is how these are going to work. So we have Greece for the Dance of Love, we have France for the Dance for Freedom. They haven't told us yet where the last one, which is the Dance for Joy, where that's going to be introduced or when. All right, I assume it will be after the November trip to France. I don't know how soon after. I think a lot of that depends on what's happening with the planetary grids and whether we're going to have to do another leap. Because ideally, it would be nice to have about a year between each one of these just to integrate the frequencies. But right now, because there's certain things happening on the planet that are not the most positive things in the world, we need to move through these fast. The issue of those of you who've read, the Voyagers books and are aware of the, let's say, showdown that's coming for August 12th of 2003. A showdown that if certain frequencies are in critical mass on the planet, it'll be like a great sigh of relief and things will go much easier there forward. And if not, there's going to be frequency fence being progressively blasted here that is meant to shut down the DNA, to keep you locked into 3D so you don't see what's going on, around you, because we're all activating and we'll be seeing more. Now, these technologies, these radio body activations will progressively build the Akasha Merkaba, which will progressively allow you to walk through that without being affected by it. So these are strong enough activations that if you get them in under the line before that frequency fence broadcast gets to a certain critical mass level on the planet, that you will not be affected by the frequency fence, nor will your bodies, because the frequency fences can also mess up the bodies physically. They, can cause people to become ill. And we're going to see more of that happening probably in the next 5 or 6 years. You're going to watch certain strange things happening with, mainstream populations and things. Working with these technologies will give you a protection field, a stronger protection field, so you can keep the levels of activations that you've worked so hard to get already, and you can continue the activations without having the frequencies running through the atmosphere shutting you down every time you try to activate. All right. Now, this is why we're doing them fast. This is why we're not waiting 1 year for this one, then 1 year for that one. By August of 2003, just in case certain things don't go as well as the Guardians would hope, you will already have built enough frequency to not fall back asleep. Because falling back asleep after you've worked so hard to get where you are, where you can sit and listen to this kind of information, would be very, very sad, because you worked hard to get here. Even before you ever met, our work, you've been working really hard. And if you look back at your life, this life, even if it's the only one you remember, you have been working very hard to get to the point where you could sit in this chair right now, and there will be a point in your future where you look back from a different place, where you actually made it through a gate. Wow, so this is inner Earth. Oh, I remember this. I used to live here. All of a sudden it's not as big a deal as you thought it was when you were on this side. It's like, is it real? Could it really be there? Could I really possibly go to this wonderful, magical place, right? And you get over it and you say, oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, and so lives over there. You'll remember it. But there's a part of you that's looking back right now, knowing that you worked really hard just to get to where you could be right now, and you worked really hard, and you will work hard from here to get to there. But it's also you can get back to there, where you're not trapped in here anymore, where you're not trapped in this little tiny hologram, this controlled prison camp hologram, and where you actually help to set it free. The last one, the Dance for Joy, is mastering the Maharahuva body. That's the density 4 avatar body. It's a density 4 radio body activation, and this would be the final phase of building the Akasha Merkaba. The phase 4 of the Akasha Merkaba is called the Imanyanas Merkaba, and that is the same thing as the Akasha Merkaba. The Akasha are the sound tone, or the vibrations of the names of the currents that create that Merkaba. This Merkaba, once you have the ability to activate it. Now right now, if we all got our codes activated and could activate them right now, we'd totally blow up the planet if we tried to activate them right now. But what we're doing in the bodies is building the parts that can be activated. So when the time comes, when it's time to use them, when the planet has raised its frequencies enough, where it can sustain people walking around in these fields without it crashing the grids. We will already have them made. It's like having them on idle. We'll also be able to use them if case there's a crisis. These are the Merkaba fields that would allow you to be taken into either the inner earth or into one of the transharmonic trion meage zones that we talked about. I forget which workshop we talked a little bit about those in. But these have to do with a particular time matrix that interfaces with ours. I think it's once every 440 years for 110 years, and it opened in 2002. It's starting to interface here. This is where the masters, right, the Palladians, the Palladians live from the Palladia-Urtite cloister races. That's where their whole reality shifted into those spaces. These are places that, if things get rough here, they're buffer places, places where people can be safe. These are the Merkaba fields you need to get in there. You won't get in to either those places where you can stay in them if you just have the regular star tetrahedron Merkaba. So we're being given these now so we can, when the time comes, have the ability to fully activate the Merkaba. The Dance for Joy will have the 12 celebrations of mastery, the 12 gratitudes of mastery, and the 12 victories of mastery. And I imagine we're going to learn a whole lot of wonderful things together by the time we get that far. I don't know when they're going to give Dance for Joy yet. Maybe they'll let me know before this workshop is over. What I will do is you'll get a copy of this. You would have probably had more if the computer hadn't crashed when we were trying to get it copied. You'll at least have this. There's going to be more. I'm going to be up tonight doing paperwork because there's at least some charts I want to get done so you can see certain things, because it's much easier to get it if you can look at where things are in a diagram. So I'm going to do what Ma asked me to do 10 minutes ago, which is shut up. And I'm going to pass the microphone to speaker number 2. And just because he's speaker number 2 and I'm number 1, that's not a pecking order. All right? It's just who had the first job and who has the second one. They're the same. They're all the same level. And we're going to introduce speaker number 3 by the end of the weekend as well, because that contract has been, finalized. And I'm very glad at who it is. It's somebody who is very, very qualified for this and has served the role before. So anyway, I will turn the mic over to, oh, no, I won't. He left. Okay. Okay. What speaker 2 is going to do is he's going to run you through. You've heard enough of being talked at. Now we're going to do an exercise. And I will let you introduce it and take it from there. Okay. Do you mind if I go find that?
Pardon? Not. Sometimes some things come in so early that we have them for like a year or more before we're moved to share them with people. And what we're going to do together tonight is something that Ashan and I have shared once. I think it was about 18 months ago, and it's referred to as the Maharic template guided meditation. And it's a particular experience which will ultimately lead to you meeting your Christos and receiving a gift from your Christos, which you will bring back to the physical body here and now. In some of my past experiences, it would be fair to say that I've had difficulty visualizing or experiencing or being led or guided by someone to a place where ultimately I would meet something called a Christos, much less receive the most massive, beautiful amethyst snow-covered crystal you'd ever seen in your life and bring it back and put it in your tailbone. But I was that man. This technique is absolutely extraordinary, and it's one that, because it's being recorded, is becoming part of the Dance for Life program, and I highly recommend it. I know Ashana, she's in the room, would do, too, for you to put it on your list of favorites that you use from time to time. Because I take you through it, you will realize, you will learn some things about the dimensional levels and why you can go there and what you can do there. And you may be drawn to some of these levels from time to time in order that you want to receive further information, things that may help you to work with a new gift you're going to receive this evening, or when you want to solve a problem. All right? And you'll gather as we move through it step by step what kind of applications are available, because I'll mention them as we go. All right? So if you can start to just moderate your breathing. So 2 or 3 deep breaths. I will put plenty of space into this so that when I'm telling you to feel something or imagine something, I'll give you time to do it, but I won't talk over it until it's time to move on to the next step. So while you're regulating your breathing, I'll just explain in outline what we're going to do. We're going to take an initial journey down to the first cell, first of the 8 cells, which you keep in your tailbone. It's where it's always found. This is the location of the Christos ray. It's the point of entry of the hydroplasmic beam, which anchors first there before spreading to the other 7 cells, and, as it were, the creation of your own catharogrid at the point of fetal integration. This process brings healing and enlightenment, as well as, with a little practice, experience of oneness of a kind that is rare to find. It's also a place you go to receive specific guidance and information from Source, from your Christos. So, just concentrate on your breathing a little bit. Just try to feel or sense the difference in how your body begins to change. You should be feeling a little softer, a little more stretched out, more of a stretched, graceful, gentle, flowing waveform, which is you. And I want you to begin to imagine yourself as a ball of light. You as consciousness, as pure consciousness. The center of your skull, the pineal gland. And begin to move this ball of light, which is you, consciousness, down to the first cell at the very tip of your tailbone. Don't be in a hurry to do it. Just move it gently down the central vertical current, all the way down to your tailbone. On each exhale, just a little push. Gently draw more breath. Exhale, a little push again. To do this properly will take several breaths. As you arrive there, I want you to try and feel yourself as a spark of light within a teardrop shape of light. The teardrop represents the Akasha. So try and feel yourself as a spark of light within this teardrop shape of light, in your tailbone. And inside of this teardrop, see yourself as a tiny teardrop of energy. So you have a teardrop nested inside of a teardrop. You may notice that the energy in this space is particularly buzzy. Now try and feel or sense, but in some way choose the one spot here where there is no sense of movement whatsoever. This is how the first cell really feels. Take your time and move slowly to this spot where you sense no movement at all. This is the Christos grounding space. Pale silver space or spherical silver space. Move yourself fully into the sense of this. In this way you'll be surrounded by a sphere of silver light. This is a place in future where you will go to remember, to reclaim, to know why you are here, to know your true full self, the ideas you left for yourself, and your relationship, your very private and individual relationship with divine right order. You will also experience feelings of excitement of a little child, yet sometimes frustrated, and sometimes feeling a little bit battered. I want you to try to feel yourself as an 8-year-old child. It's impossible not to notice that there are many memories, some of them painful, often accompanied by disharmonic energies associated with fetal integration. Just simply squashed up, packed away into your own emotional body. I want you to change the image a little bit, or the sense, the feeling. I want you to picture yourself now as a guardian of your own 8-year-old self. In the teardrop shape, in your tailbone. And I want you to feel as much compassion for this 8-year-old version of yourself as you greet it. So as best as you can, you visualize yourself as a grown-up, looking down into the face of your own 8-year-old self. But you'll do this as a parent of the Christos, tender yet strong, loving and wise. Now I want you to bend down on one knee so you come down to eye level and make deep eye contact with your 8-year-old self. If in future you wish to come here, your 8-year-old self will take you back to your fetal point, the first point of entry into this physical plane. And it's here you would come if your 8-year-old self had questions it wanted to put to you, or assistance you could provide it. Try to feel your 8-year-old and recognize its sense of relief as it realizes that you, representing the angelic being that you really are now with it, that you're reunited. And its immediate and instant awareness that this is going to take you both on a journey. You will lead each other, though the Christos will really guide you both. The Christos it will be who will create an elevator of pale liquid light for you both to travel on. Take the hand of your 8-year-old self now, still in a teardrop of silver light, big enough for both of you to travel in. I want you to look upwards because your teardrop shape is still surrounded by the silver sphere. But in looking up immediately above your heads, you'll see a shaft or a tunnel opening in the sphere. This really represents the central vertical column of your own body. As you look at it, your 8-year-old self helps you to expand your own consciousness and your relationship with this. It seems to know and understand what together you're about to do. Continue to look upwards, and as you do, feel a gentle pull from the opening of the tunnel above your head. Allow yourself to feel the pull of it, and in your own time, experience a floating feeling. And then notice that you both are actually floating upwards, slowly and gently. As you make this journey, you'll notice that you'll pass through a pale silver field of liquid light, surrounded by bands of colored light. The first one that you come to is crimson. It doesn't touch you, and you don't want to be touched by it. But you pass through this tunnel of colored light. As you go through it, feel what this colored frequency means to you. This connects you to the D1 planetary kingdom. And here there is information for you, the first level of information that you may ever want to revisit. But here, what forms, what elementals wish to speak to you? If you have a feeling that that is so, make a note and plan to come back. You keep on floating upwards, gently and slowly, holding the hand of your 8-year-old self. And you come to the next level, which is soft silver orange field within the tunnel. The light is still not touching you. And here you may identify with the plant and the animal kingdoms, and very much issues that are in connection with your emotional body. Here is where your own emotional connection is at its fullest, and where it can be best made and remade, healed and developed. Continue moving upwards, and this time you come to a soft silver yellow field, still not touching. This is the place of the mental body and the solar plexus. You wait here, pause here for a moment. Feel what you're surrounded by. It's likely that much distortion and confusion is found around you here. This is the place the blockages of your DNA exist. This is also your power center. This is the place of control issues and conflict. This is where you go to find them and heal them. If you happen to be noticing intense yellow around you here, it's showing you that you need more Christos frequency before you revisit. It's important to combine the silver with the intense yellow if you're to return here to address some of these issues. We move gently on upward now into the field of pale silver green. This is the place of the crossing point from density 1 to density 2. Allow this pale silver green, swirling all around you both, to touch you, to touch your skin, to feel it as if a layer all over and around your body. It seems to have a life of its own. This is the last part of you that you both remember before your higher consciousness was shut out at the point of fetal integration. This is the place to come at the beginning of sleep or for soul travel purposes. This is the place where you would go to. Surround yourself with this silver green in order to assist yourself to remember dreams in the meditative state. Continue to float gently upward now. The fifth dimension, the electrical emerald blue. Very powerful template which controls the emotions and the connection between the higher and the lower bodies. This is the place of great healing. We won't remain here now. We move on to the level of indigo blue. It's a strange, perhaps murky space. The place of the third eye. It's the place you bring yourself to, working with your Christos. And you would say something like, on arrival, please help me now to open my inner vision, or to open it further, if already open a little. You would come to this particular location to work on that particular chakra with your Christos in future, if you wished. We're going now to the violet spectra. And here is a place of massive amounts of information about your soul family. This is the place which contains specific details of this or other lives. And again, you revisit this violet spectrum. Your relationship with your Christos will assist you when you ask to be shown details of other lives, your soul family, and all related information that you may wish to explore. This is a place also where you will receive much practical and helpful detail. We continue our float upwards to the 8th chakra, the thymus, which radiates effectively all around your head. This is a chakra which has been opening over the course of the last several months for everyone, all of the indigos in any case. It's a gold silver band around the head, holds memories associated with density 3, specifically the 8th dimension. And it's here you would come to investigate or explore, understand aspects of your oversoul and galactic identity and your heritage. You could investigate your own personal history here. You could move backwards and forwards in time from this place in a very effective and useful way, as well as an educational one. Move up to the 9th dimension, just opening also. This is represented by dark silver. There's absolutely fascinating data stored here. This is how you direct things with your thought from this place, your co-creator place. This is the peak of the Antakarana pillar, where the connection to your Maharata, D10, 11, 12 frequencies are made. Move on through this field into the field of deep blue black light. If you wanted to explore your intergalactic heritage, this is the place you would come. You and your 8-year-old continue to float up gently and easily, entering into a field of silver, velvety black light. This extends into space forever and ever. This is the place that is known as the void. Here you begin to explore, if you wished, your first manifest identity. This is the one you came into density originally with. Where you came in, whether you came in as an Elohai, Seraphim, or Elohim, any of the founding race patterns will be found in this place. And finally, you're going to make your approach to the Christos template. And at this point, you and your 8-year-old will have a focus about 3 feet above your head at the 14th chakra. And here is where the experience begins to change, because together you experience 2 spiraling vortices of lightweight mercury, or it may feel like sparkling water. Either of the images work perfectly well. You feel this final ascent as a vortex pulling you in. You feel a molecular reaction within your body. You may experience the shock of a watery feeling all around you, above and below the surface of your skin. And here is a place where really you just simply let go and allow this level to draw you ever closer. And the more you do, the more readily you'll move through to what lies beyond this point. Continue to feel this watery feeling whirling around you as both of you make ready to reach D12. Tingly and buzzing, vibration all around you. And you come onto what would appear to be a silver platform or a plateau. At first you don't necessarily see anything, but you're aware that you're standing on something quite firm. And you offer a greeting to your Christos self, regardless of whether anything presents or meets you. See yourself and your 8-year-old child sit on a silver platform, a bench. A silver-colored sofa would work just as well. This is a place you would go to see or feel yourself beyond ideas, beyond beliefs, beyond thought, beyond any aspects of density. Every breath you take here absorbs frequency directly into your cells, which can be brought back to your physical body. Every movement you make, your own 8-year-old child version of yourself also makes. And whilst you're here, and whenever you visit this place, remember that on every inhale, you bring silver frequency in through the temples of your head. And as you do it there, you're effectively pulling frequency into the temples of your physical head here. As you do it, it moves to the center of your skull at the pineal. As you exhale up there. So inhale it in your temples up there, you're drawing it in through your temples here. As you exhale it, you're actually accreting it or building it up in your pineal gland in your skull here. And this is a good technique to work to develop. This is a living light connection. Now, you continue to breathe the silver frequency in through your temples and be aware that as you exhale, you're drawing it back to your physical body down here. Regular practice of this will produce a noticeable increase in Kundalini, which will last for anything from 4 to 5 hours. Will give you a short, sharp build-up in Kundalini should you ever need to do this. Now, you came here to find a Maharic contract, the one common purpose shared by all 1,720 aspects of yourself, to experience a set of cognitions of books on books, books about books, books beyond books you've ever known before. So imagine yourself and the child that is with you surrounded by beautiful ethers. And allow your focus to clear. And as you do, out of the ethers you will find emerges a pale silver person, a wraith-like figure, a guide, the Christos, which is you. And the Christos figure approaches you and greets you. And if you ask it, in this very moment, it will present you with a program of your own initiation in the form of a crystalline structure. You reach out, both of your palms face up. And in this moment, you will receive a crystalline form. It is entirely peculiar to you, as personal as ever you could wish it to be. This is a gift from your Christos in this moment of the greatest magnitude and gravity, taken in the form of a crystal, and contains all details, or further details if necessary, of your own avatar contract. Complete the expression of gratitude for receiving this gift in whatever way you feel is appropriate right now. Bring that crystalline object towards your own heart center. Feel yourself clasping it to your own body there. And if you can, imagine a sort of dual sense of you having that feeling against your heart center here, without necessarily holding any crystalline form here at all at the moment. Under private circumstances, you could remain in this space for as long as you were moved to do, and in time, you would doubtless enjoy long and animated conversation with your Christos self. But for now, we will bring you and your 8-year-old version of yourself back into this room. So, very slowly, together with your crystal gift, and bearing in mind that as you travel back very slowly, the crystal that you've just received, or the crystalline form that you've just received, will absorb more crystalline structures as you move back down through the levels, collecting elements, information, further practical gifts from the oversoul level, the soul level, those things associated with your fetal contract or incarnational template, instructions that you left for yourself. Move slowly down through the levels, moving down from the 14th chakra, comfortably down into the crown, not too quickly, moving down through the standard 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, back into the tailbone. Now, take the crystalline structure, visualize it in your physical hand, and I want you to move the palm of your hand around to your tailbone. Put the palm of your right hand holding the crystal that you receive from your Christos self into the space in the area of your bottom where the tailbone is. I want you to pull Maharic frequency from the earth's core all the way up to your heart center. Deep breath. Expand it as a sphere in the heart center and push that sphere of silver energy down into your palm, activating the crystal and all possible DNA strands at this time. This action will further enable you to access the data that the crystalline structure you have received will be eased, and also in relation to your own DNA activation. what you received will reflect a particular occasion in which your choice to be at one with God and your choice particularly to find more of your own angelic self will be accelerated and fully realized. Just breathe easily now, with a minute or two for you to reflect on your own personal experience, or any impressions of the nature of the information or the contract that you've just received, so that you commit them to memory and so that you can use them to revisit this space in future.
Yeah, that was excellent. Okay, conference. All righty. How'd you like that? Did you feel movement with this? Imagine playing with that for if you had like an afternoon alone in your room, where you just had places to explore. This particular technique is very good for becoming your own teacher, where the different parts of your own consciousness begin to show you things and begin to open things for you, your own Christos self as your guide. We're going to get this put on tape as soon as possible, so they're available. And there's a short version in writing, so we can probably get you that, like tomorrow or whatever. That was one that it's not officially in the Dance Life program, like there will be the set that go with Dance for Life. This can be used with it, or in just on its own, or with other ones as well. Thing for you. They take your power away and pretend that they have your answers for you. All right, you have your answers. We have information that belongs to all of us, that we have a job that we've been commissioned to do, which is to translate, so it's easier for everybody to get their hands and their brains on it. The rest belongs to you. We're just here in service to you and in service to the Christos mission. So I just want to make that very, very clear for the people, particularly the people who are new. This is not a guru movement, and it never ever will be. And hopefully, if we do our job well, you'll never ever feel you need a guru or a guardian angel again. Guardian angels can be your friends. A guardian friend is fine, but an angel, guardian angels, and those kind of things, so people are taught to give their power to. Oh, the angel will fix it, or this one will fix it, or oh, that one will save me. I don't have to worry about learning this. This stuff is totally disempowering. It's an insult to you because it's saying you're a pathetic, lowly little thing, not much more than an animal. And of course, animals need somebody to take care of them because they can't think for themselves. If you do well with these programs, you'll eventually get it, where you'll look at that kind of stuff and say, all power to you, nice angels up there, the ones that are actually, doing well. But I'll be your friend, but I'm an angel too. I don't need you to fix things for me. I know how to do this for myself. When you encounter teachings like the Lord of the Rays, the Masters of the Rays, and this kind of stuff, oh, the Masters of Karma, they'll fix it for you. The Karma Lords, there are some things to teach about these. Well, if you become a Karma Lord yourself and you know how to fix your own, you don't need another one to do it for you. If you become a Master of the Rays within your own being, you do not need a master who is manipulating the rays to manipulate those rays in your being. So there's a whole shift in consciousness. You'll find yourself, it's almost in retrospect, you start to get it more, because once you get that lesson and you realize that, hey, I have all of these things inside of me. I don't need to put my authority that's really mine out on somebody else to fix it for me. I don't have to be scared. I don't have to worship. Worship. You don't have to worship anything. Honoring the worth-ship is different than worship. God is real. God is a being. God is beyond form. God does not need you to worship. What God really would like would to have a conscious co-creationship relationship with you, a loving, open friendship. Think of children. What if you were a parent and you had a child and you raised that child up until the child wasn't a grown-up, and the most fulfilling type of relationship you can have with a person who used to be your child, and will always be your child, but they're not a baby anymore, is a friendship where you learn they teach you things too. You learn and grow together. You're friends. This is the type of relationship that God really wants. It doesn't want subjugation. God doesn't want you to bow down and pray and beg for forgiveness because you're a lowly, pathetic, sinful thing. This is a bunch of nonsense that we've been fed, that has manipulated us and kept us scared and begging for a long time. So if we work with these programs, we'll progressively come into our own power, where we know God lives within us. God is a part of us. We are a part of God. We don't need to play those little power trip games. When we talk about the man-now tomorrow, the man-now force is the God force that's in our cells and in our bodies. And it's much more than that. So when we get into tomorrow's things, we'll talk more about that. I just wanted to point those things out to you, especially because there's some new people in the group. This is not one of those self-proclaimed savior groups that, we'll take you off on spaceships and you'll be fine. We will teach you what it takes to go through stargates. Whether or not you ever get through one is going to be between you, yourself, your avatar, and what you came in with as far as the karmic imprint. We will give you the teachings that will allow you to have the knowledge you need to work through those issues with yourself. But we will not ever promise to save you, but we would do our best to help if we could. If it ever went into crisis or anything like that, we would do our best to round you all up and say, okay, whatever level you're at, amplify it as much as you can, because here's what we have to do, here's where we have to meet, pickup is at, whatever. If it went into that, we would, be in service to you that way, but we would never, ever lead you to believe something that wasn't true. These people that say, oh, we'll save them, we'll save you, just believe in this being or that being, and that one's going to save me and get me through, and the whole bit. They can't make those promises because they can't take your DNA template out of your body. They can't fix it. You have the power to fix it. So it's very sad for people to put their whole trust in a being that seems to have some knowledge and they seem to be enlightened, and that being promises them salvation. And then they find, if, say, they're on a planet and pole shift happens or something, all of a sudden they're still sitting there waiting for the spaceship to come, or waiting for so-and-so guru to hold their hand and take them someplace safe, and so-and-so doesn't show up, and the ships never fly. There is a very deep sadness, not just for the person who has experienced this type of thing. There's a betrayal factor that happens that can really be soul-crushing. It can really, really put a person's soul into a space of having a major mistrust pattern that will come with them in the next incarnation and the next experiences that they have. We will not lead you or set you up for that. And when you go into a situation of teaching people yourselves, remember that. Because anybody that tries to play overlord to anybody they're teaching is not teaching our program. I don't care what lip service you're giving to it. And I've met a few that have been doing that. They're actually pulling power plays with people, and they are manipulating very subtly people into a pecking order type of situation where certain people aren't allowed to speak, certain people aren't allowed to do anything if that leader person says they can't. This is not our teachings, even if it's being put under the guise of our teachings. And I just want to make that clear, because you're going to see more and more and more of this, because there are Nephilim at this point that are infiltrating the groups, and they are attempting to play this little subtle power play game. Get the trust, seem like they're, right there with, teaching the teachings, and all of a sudden you'll find that, wait a minute, what am I doing with my power? What are they having me do with my power? I don't remember that in any of the books. You have to watch for this now as you move into the times that are coming, because there's more of this happening. And I just wanted to make that statement on behalf of all of us, and all of the regents that are here that already know this, that these are the freedom teachings. And that means there may be a hierarchy of responsibility, who has what jobs in a particular group. It's a cooperative. But there is not a hierarchy of who you're supposed to hand your power over to. You keep it, it's yours. You share it only when you want to, and don't ever let anybody take that privilege away from you, because that's when you start to become a sheep instead of your own shepherd. And we don't breed sheep. We breed shepherds, people who are shepherds of themselves. All right? And people who don't, shepherds, who are sick of being shepherds, don't want sheep either. So you teach other people to be their own shepherds. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's getting late now. We're about, I think, actually we balanced out good. We were about 15 minutes late, and we're 15 minutes over. Okay. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow morning. Recap really quick. 10 o'clock will be the level 1 and 2 ordinations. 10:30? Is that where you're going to do Amethyst, Emerald and Amethyst Awakening? Okay, and then we will start, program about 11 o'clock. this course to someone else. The progression of the charts that I'm going to put up, and I'm going to go through them quickly after I go through this, and this is a new one that you haven't seen yet. After I go through this, then I'm going to go through them quickly, but just enough so you see how I sequence them if you're going to teach this, like those things in relation to Dance for Life, and also to make the connections between the things that we're going to talk about that I'm going to discuss a little bit here and the things you're already familiar with. You know, you're familiar with chakras and you're familiar with Cathara grids and those kind of things. And you're going to learn through this afternoon what a radial body is and basically what it does. We're going to learn something called the transduction sequence. That's the sequence that primal life force currents pass through to literally through these parts of your anatomy and the planetary anatomy and the galactic anatomy to get down to the point where they pop out into your hologram. All right, so we're going to see a more advanced version of the transduction sequence that was originally introduced in Cathara in very simple terms. So we'll see a bit of that so we understand where the radial body fits in to this process. Then we're going to discuss Vecca codes. Now, it's interesting. We started getting the Vecca codes in September, I believe it was, and it was like, here, use this, right? Okay, what does it do? It does this. How does that work? You'll get it later. Well, we finally are getting the information. In fact, the Calgary workshop was where they started to give us some paperwork on what the Veccas do. And that's when we learned about the fact that we have a radial body, which was nice to know, because the Vecca codes work directly with the different levels of the radial body. And the radial body is your manifestation machine. This is the part of you of your consciousness that connects to the universe in all the different levels, that connects right down into your cells, into the nucleus of your cells. And the reason people on this planet for many thousands of years have lost their direct ability for direct manifestation, where you can think a thought and make it go, and it pops out in reality, we used to be able to do that. The human race had that as a natural attribute. We were created in the image of our Creator, and our Creator was consciousness, is consciousness, and we are consciousness, and we were given the same thing as our Creator has, which is the free will ability to create. And this creation process, how we create our hologram, is the same process by which Source creates the hologram, the larger hologram of the cosmos. So we're going to begin to learn what the basic process is here in creating our hologram and what has gone wrong. Because obviously, if it was that easy, none of us would be doing what we're doing probably. We'd all have our own little islands or little countries, beautiful little planets all to ourselves probably, you know. We'd have the planet of the cat people that like cats and the planets of the dog people that like dogs, and they'd visit each other sometimes, and then plant people, you know. If we could all just make it go. And most of us are so tired at this point. We've been on this planet for a very long time. Indigos and humans have been repeatedly incarnating here because they made a commitment ages ago to fulfill the Christos realignment mission on this planet. And it's taken a lot longer than any of us expected when we raised our hand for that job, right? But a commitment is a commitment. And the human beings were, to begin with, before they entered densities, they were ascended masters, and they came in as a team to help. Indigos are also. So it's interesting, we've actually taken on the conditions that we were hoping to help the others heal. We let ourselves fall flat on our faces so we could learn what that meant, so we could feel what a consciousness went through in that state, so we could find out how to fix it, and so we could understand and maintain the love with the others who fell and could do horrible things. So we've learned a lot in the time we've been here, but most of us are very, very tired. Just like, okay, can we do game over, like, with this already? Can we get on to the next game, you know? Because it's just, after a while, a victim-victimizer for, like, 250 billion years, it gets old after a while. Been there, done that. Can we do something else now? Well, this is a time period that we all knew would come when we entered manifestation here. We knew this time period would come. It was a time period when what's called the Phantom Matrix healing experiment was going to be over. And we are in that time frame now. It's a time frame when no matter how far we fell and how lost we got, we were going to let ourselves remember who we were again. And we were going to reclaim the knowledge that was ours so we could heal ourselves and then assist in healing any of them from the Phantom Matrix that wanted to be healed. This is why the teachings are being brought back now in this time frame. This is why the Christos founders races and the Janus ascended masters are bringing back the high teachings, the real high-level teachings. The teachings that have been on this planet for the last, especially since 9058 BC, have been 99% ruby order teachings, which are Anunnaki teachings. They teach a very limited system because they can't access past D11.5. To them, that's the end of their universe. And it's a reverse matrix universe. They don't teach you that part of it. They teach you how to ascend in the phantom matrix. They teach you how to go into an astral body that doesn't have flesh matter like this one, and they call that ascension. That is not what full ascension is. That's actually descension. That's falling down in the pit. What we are teaching are the original teachings that their teachings came out of and got twisted from. These are the original teachings that belong to everybody. They belong to all of the Christos races. And I'm at this point, with the information that's coming through now, there's an excitement, because each level there's always an excitement, like, ooh, I remember that from way back when. This is important. This is the next step in getting our power and our memory and our beingness back. But this time, with the release of what's called the Manau codes, this is where we begin to get back our ability directly of direct manifestation. It's not going to come all at once. Poof, there you go, you're fixed. But we're going to be able to begin a massive healing in our own bodies, which is fascinating because most of us don't realize how mutated the life forms on this planet really are. When you start to realize that hydrogen atoms that hold like DNA together don't have neutrons, and neutrons are the things that open up to let the other frequencies come in so the cells can blend with the ones from the next harmonic up so you can turn into light and then pop up someplace else in another universe. We are literally mutated on this planet down to the elemental level, to the core level. Atoms aren't shaped the way they're supposed to be shaped. The numbers of electrons and protons in atoms of all sorts of different substances are not what they naturally would be. This planet is running right now on a reverse base 4. That's 4 subfrequency bands in only 3 dimensions. All right, that's the only frequency that's running here. There's a chart that I'll show you as we move along. This is the one I spent 4 or 5 hours on last night, but it was so important just so you could see it because it makes a lot more sense when you can see it visually. You can see what was shut off. There's a diagram that's going to be in, by sometime tomorrow, probably before you leave, you will have a chart pack that has these new graphs in it. But this diagram shows an atom, and it shows the natural fields. And literally, analyzes them, shows you which ones are coming from which currents that we're going to talk about, what dimensional frequency they carry, and how they're supposed to be around. Every atom of every substance is supposed to carry these life force energies. And there's a chart that will show you that the 99% of them are like shut off. They're just literally blocked and can't flow into the body systems. That's why we don't remember who we are. That's why our bodies die instead of ascend. So when we start to see really what has been done here, it would be scary if we just got to see what was done, if we weren't given at the same time the solutions. What's wonderful is the solution is not as difficult as it is to understand what the problem was. That's the hard part, identifying what the heck is wrong down here. Now that we're learning how to do that, the solutions are simple. We can use what are called the geomancies, which are the mathematical programs that the templates, the blueprints of matter run on. If we reset the natural templates, it will progressively heal whatever is distorted in them in the lower dimensional fields. That's the whole principle of DNA bioregenesis. You're regenerating the original template if we start with our bodies, and that's what's happening with the planet. That's what Christos realignment is. Your Christos is your D12 pre-matter divine blueprint. What your whole being decided when it was going to come in to densities. It had its life plans for all 1,728 of you that were coming in at the same time in different time frames, because all of you have 1,728 cells right now manifest in the densities. You can't get in without doing that. You have to break yourself down and fragment yourself into little packages in order to fit in the smaller dimensional fields, in order to have a linear time progression experience in space-time. So part of what we're going to do is bring back the rest of our cells. We're going to start to become more aware of ourselves as we begin to heal. Now the healing process begins with these. With the dance of the dance programs, let's say, the dance of programs, I'll call them, because we have the dance of life, the dance of love, the dance of freedom, and the dance of joy. Those 4. They all will have the similar structure. They'll have 12 of this, 12 of that, and 12 of something else. In this one, we get the 12 lessons of mastery, And we're going to either, at the end of today, probably go into the 12 attitudes of mastery, which is something that's worth talking about because attitude is everything when you're trying to work with spirit. And tomorrow we're going to get into the 12 actions. Now the 12 actions are going to be like a 12-step program, you know, of things you can do with yourself and for yourself, some on a daily basis, some on a weekly basis, some on a monthly basis, that will assist you in your process and that will allow you to keep the activation levels that you're getting, allow you to keep them regardless of what's floating around in the ethers out here in 3D as far as frequency fences, and it will also allow you to progressively move forward. And then each of these courses is meant to do that. So we'll start here with the 12 lessons of mastery. Now these are the things that if you were going to have somebody, you know, a little group come over to your house and you're going to teach them, or if you're going to do a big workshop and you're going to teach them, you would start. There's not a lot of paperwork yet, and there will be more. It always expands, it accretes. But you would start with basically introducing the whole paradigm. If they came in, they never saw Kathara, they never saw any of this stuff, they're just a little curious, gee, what's this about? You don't have to get into fallen angelics and, you know, United Resistance War Edicts and things like that. You would start with simply the primal life force field. Now, when we originally began teaching this, when we were learning structure, we started with part Chi, part K, and part Cum, the basic units of consciousness that build together to form chelons, that form part Chi grids, that build up and form the rest of our structure, our 15-dimensional anatomy, and the universe is 15-dimensional anatomy. Right now, excuse me, we're going to introduce the primal forces. All right? We're going to introduce first, as opposed to just introducing primal structure and primal substance. Before the substance, before the structure, there is the force, or the will, or the intention. The intention of Source, the will of Source, is the force. You have God Source, which is God. You have God Force, which is God willing intention into creation. So when we're talking about the forces, we are talking about living, breathing in their own way, portions of God's consciousness that are literally the foundation, like a blanket of frequency, that allows the rest of structure and substance and structure to be built up. It goes back to, if we think about what we know about part Chi, part K, and part Cum, those little tiny units, the first building blocks of manifestation that are little tiny scalar standing waves. Well, to make those waves happen, there's a force. If you go back to right before, what happened before there was a part Chi, a part K, and a part Cum, there was an intention. There was a desire. You could say that there was a void that needed to be filled. A void, a desire to create. Source had a desire to create. In this creation, the first part Chi, part K, and part Cum were formed. They were, let's say, points of attention within the infinite field of consciousness that is Source. Now, where is this field? Nowhere. Everywhere. There's a concept of something called the no thing, that is everything. Before a thing, before even a part Chi, a part K, or a part Cum, there is the consciousness of Source. This is a level of experiential reality that you cannot translate into any kind of linear language. It is a touchy-feely one. You have to go there and feel it to know what it means. That's what Ascension's about. Being able to take, get yourself into density where you came out of there in the first place, but then be able to bring yourself back out and remember the whole trip, where you can feel that progressively. So when we're talking about the forces of consciousness, of God consciousness, that bring the entire hologram of manifestation into being, we're talking about not just playing with energy, not just looking at structures of energy or currents of energy that are there for us to learn how to use again. We are talking about beings of energy that take on the form of the structures we use to create our hologram. These are the co-creation forces. There are three primary co-creation forces that give birth to the first three units, the part Chi, the part K, and the part Cum. The first three creation sources, parts of God. God's all one big thing, and decided, well, I want to do this creation thing, and I want to try this thing called externalization. So it broke itself up within itself into 3 different perspectives so they could all look at each other in a certain way. Those 3 different perspectives are forces of consciousness. They're eternal. They are always there. And if they weren't there, the hologram would collapse and turn into nothing. These forces represent the divine trinity. The first trinity is the trinity of intention. There is the desire to create, the void of a creation. In the beginning was the void, and then the void became filled. And it was first filled with sound, and from the light and the void, from the sound and the void came the light. Now, before we got void, sound, and light, we had the intentions to have those 3 things to set creation in motion. The intentions are the being part. The intentions are the raw, pure consciousness of Source that eternally mans those posts, that eternally puts itself into this form, these forms, to be the directing consciousness. When we create anything down here, even if we're creating in our hologram, we're creating subconsciously and unconsciously and creating messes, we're still using the same forces. See, the forces were given to us as a gift. God gave a part of itself to us, and to the parts of itself it would send into creation. Those forces were intended to be used within the Christos blueprint, which means in cooperation with the original intention of God. That's what being in the Christos light is about. It's saying, okay, I'm not going to go, take the creation stuff and go, do my own thing, even if God doesn't like it, or even if it's going to harm the universe. I don't care. That's what the fallen angelics have done. When creation was given to us, the ability to experience ourselves, now we are one being. We are all God. Everything that's a manifestation, you put it all together, and it's God. And there's more to it than that, too. But we were given the gift, because God wanted to give itself the gift of experiencing what it meant to look at itself, to get outside of itself and be able to turn around and look at itself. That's what this is about. We're learning what that means. God is learning through us and experiencing through us. He was supposed to be a co-creative endeavor, which means cooperation. We weren't supposed to compete. There wasn't supposed to be heavy competition with the will of God versus the will of the other pieces of God that are in creation. There were certain games of understanding that got out of hand, like the victim-victimizer game. When we're dealing with these primal forces, the primal forces of God consciousness, these are parts of God that live inside of you once you open them back up in your bodies. These are portions of God consciousness that are you in the places where you never left at one-ment. The parts of you that are not in manifestation are always there with you eternally. And a lot of times when we first learn structure and those kind of things about, okay, what's our 15-dimensional anatomy, what is the structure through which we're connected to Source, it still seems like Source is up there, out there, through there somewhere, wherever that is, right? It's closer than when you have to go to like a priest or somebody and they say, oh, well, I'll pass the word on because you're so hopeless you can't even talk to God. We've learned that, yeah, we can. God's with us, okay. God's inside of us, okay. And it's like the mind gets it, but the feeling body kind of goes, I don't feel like I'm at one with God. It's like, I'd like to be at one with God. Am I doing something wrong? I know the things now about how that would happen, and I'm trying to do them, but I'm still here. I still can't ascend. I can't even levitate my pillow. If I'm at one with God, what's the problem? Am I having an issue with myself, or I'm mad at myself and I'm not talking to myself? No. After we learn structure, after we learn at least what the basic format is of what parts we have and how we need to learn to use them in order to open that part of our own God consciousness, our direct connection to Source in us, the next part is learning about the consciousness itself, which are the forces. The 3 forces. The first force is called the Manu, M-A-N-U. The Manu force. And these are the translations of the tonal vibrations that these portions of God's consciousness would have. That's how they translate into the languages down here. They're called other things in other systems where, the whole universal structure is built on different mathematics. They would sound different there. Now, the Manu force is the force of what would be called originally the still point, the first point of attention when Source decided it was going to create. It was going to create this whole thing called a cosmos. The first part of itself that it moved into a fixed point of perception to begin this process is the Mano part. It is the still point within the mind of God, within the soul of God, within the beingness of God. The Mano force is the force that the other two forces that create the Divine Trinity came out of. That is the first one and the most powerful part of the God consciousness. It is considered the Divine Spirit, and out of that came the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, the Divine Sound and the Divine Light, out of which everything else came into creation. So in the beginning, we have the Mano, and out of the Mano, the next thing that came was a vibration, the first vibration, the first particum unit, first point of vibration, which would be the first pre-sound sound that was also a force. It was a force, a part of God's consciousness. First God broke a part of itself down into the Mano, then it broke that Mano down into two other points of focus. The first was the Ire, and that's the Divine Feminine. The Ire forms the sound. At the same time, it wasn't one was created first. They pop into existence together, just like with partikai, particade, and particum. You have partikai phasing that we've talked about, where you have one partikai unit, and it breaks itself down into a particade and a particum, and it polarizes. Then it comes back up, and it flashes on and off. Well, this is the same thing. These are the first partikai, particade, and particum. But they're alive. They're beings. They're fields of God consciousness. And each one of us are connected to these fields of God consciousness. So once we know structure, the next thing, it's kind of like once you get the wiring done in the house, then you turn on the power and the lights work, right? Hopefully. We are learning now what that power is so we can turn on the power, our own God power that lives within us. And that power is fueled by one primary intention. And that one primary intention, that all of those parts, and the parts we're going to find out that came out of those, they all function on one primary agreement, one agreed upon intention, a creation intention, that was love. Absolute, unconditional love. We're going to learn as we move along. We find out about the currents that come out of these. We find out more about these forces that live and breathe within us, and there are parts of us that live and breathe within us that we need to get to know again. There's the one thing that is a fully unified field, the unified field consciousness, a field of consciousness that is composed of standing scalar wave grids and all that stuff. The underlying thing that holds it all together is the force of love, the force of vibrational harmonization. Now, interestingly, in the creation front, when the Mano creates the Ire, which becomes the Eros when it comes down lower, which is interestingly associated with the word love, the Ire is the magnetic pull force. It is the current that, if you go into manifestation, that's how you spiral back out. It's the coming back out current. At the same time that the Ire was created, there is its counterpart and its opposite, the Mane. The Mane is the projection outward force. And they are not just forces doing stuff with energy, they're intentions. The Ire wanting to draw together and hold together, while the Mane wanting to go out, having the intention, the desire, the thrust to move outward, to express itself outward, while the other has its desire to express itself inward. And they create together a balance within the Mano force, a balance of push and pull, a balance that if they were perfectly still, everything, nothing, we wouldn't have creation. Creation requires movement of intention within the original intention of the Mano, of the point of focus that God used to create the rest of what we're living right now. So we have the Mano, the Ire, and the Mane. When you put these three things together, they each have a silent sound that if you bring the silent sound out, the Mano has the sound called ek. Doesn't have a K hard sound on it yet. It's ek. It's kind of like the sound electricity makes. When there's a little buzz that electricity makes, it has almost like a almost like a Morse code kind of thing. Well, the first vibration sound of the Mano force is the ek sound. The first sound of, and this is actually the ka sound, does not go with the Ire, even though the Ire was created that when they were created, the ear A stayed closer into the man-a, while the other projected, the man-a project out further. But when we put these sound tones together, we come up with the ek for the man-a, the ka goes with the man-a, because what happens is you have the man-a, it creates the ear A, and then between the two, the man-a forms. So you have the void, the sound, and between the two comes the light. So when the sound tones are used together, you get ek for man-a, you get ka for man-a, and the sha for the ear A. You get akasha. That's what the word akasha means. It's referring to, it's calling upon those sounds. The sounds become very important. As we move through the program that we have today, we're going to learn some interesting things about sounds, and you can tell a lot by words sometimes. We're going to see some very interesting things that are names. They're names that were assigned to, let's say, certain beings, especially in the New Age movement, like the things that are contacting people nowadays. You can start to get an idea of what they're actually playing with, by what frequencies they're messing with. One of the nice things that we're going to learn today is about the 15 rays and the 12 domains. This is the universal structure. And if we understand this, we understood basic structure. We understood there was a primal sound field, and then there was a primal light field, and from that there was a divine blueprint, and from that you have your 12 dimensions down here. Now, behind that are the forces, again, the consciousness fields, the forces and the intentions. So when we get into exploring what we'd call the primal life force currents when we were dealing with them on structure level, these become the living rays of consciousness that we embody, literally combinations of them. And that's what makes up who we know ourselves to be. So we're going to learn a little bit about what they are. So when you teach these things, I'm going to go through these quick, and then I'm going to go back and just flip through the graphs really quick that you've seen before in your Cathara manual or your Templar manual. So you will see how to use these in relation to this discussion when you're trying to connect the forces to the substance and the order that you've gotten before when you're trying to teach somebody. Okay, so we have the manau, the ire, the mane, which is the akasha. So the akasha is really, you could look at it as the God seed, but there's actually the seed is the ire, and the spark is the mane. So what would you call the whole thing together? Really the closest term, other than using its real sound translation, which is akasha, you would simply refer to it or look at it as the Godhead. That is the head of the whole thing, the first point of primal creation. It is, some people call it the cave of creation, but that misses a lot. That misses a lot of the fact that this is where a big portion of God's thoughts are focused right now. This is all about thought, because what set this whole thing in motion, this whole cosmic structure, was simply an intention in the mind of God, a desire in the heart of God. The heart of God wasn't a big red thing made of flesh. It was a feeling that had a desire to create. The mind of God wasn't something that had to be sitting in a brain to be functional. It was a knowing that it could create. We're going to begin to feel these realities in our body when we work with the technologies that we're being given now. The Manau codes are the codes of the radial bodies. We'll talk about the radial bodies in a little while. But what the radial bodies do is they open up or close, if they're not working right, these primal force currents. They either close them out of the body or open them up into the body. When you have your radial body working naturally, when your atoms are working naturally, you walk around in a body, in a hologram, and you know there is no difference between you and God. It is a feeling, a knowing. There's no difference. It's like saying, well, that's my thumb, and that lives over there, and that's not a part of me. There's no difference when you get into these spaces of feeling it. And when you feel that, you begin to realize, you look at everybody different and everything. You not only intellectually understand that we're all part of one, and struggle to try to remember that when people are really pushing your buttons and really getting on your nerves and you want to bite somebody. It's a feeling that comes as that knowing comes from the mental body, the D3, strand 3, third chakra, moves down into strand 2, into the emotional body, into the elemental body, where the elements, the little elementals, like the little tiny two-dimensional fairies and things that fly around, that some of them live in your body, they start to get the message too. And then it goes down into your D1 strand, your base chakra. You start to feel it and live it and be it. This is what the steps we're taking now in the program are about: awakening the forces, awakening the mano, awakening the ire, and awakening the mane. Now the way to awaken the three of them is to use the one that has the both of them within it. So the manao force is the one out of which the other two came and which they actually reside within. If you look at the manao as the void, say a vacuum, within which creation was going to occur, and in the void a vibration was set, a word. There was a void. And then God spoke within the void. In the beginning was the word, which was a vibration. And from the word of God, the light came forth. And from the light came all of the creation of heavens. Now, we're going to get into the 7 higher and 7 lower heavens briefly also, so you see these structures and where they fit. But if we can think of, when we think of the term manao, there's 2 things that will help us understand it. One is think of a void space. Like we talk about that void space between the harmonic universes. This is where the manao is stationed, right? We have it in our atoms as well. If you think of the manao in terms of a word you've learned through Kathara, which is part-1, the antimatter unit that the other 2 come out of. You could look at the manao force as the first and eternal part-1 unit. In energy terms, that's what it is, but it's actually the thought before the part-1. It's the thought before the part-1 turned into a vibration. It's the thought of being a part-1 and setting it all in motion. We look at the word ire. The ire goes with the part-1. It can also be looked at as the divine feminine seed or egg that was in the void or the womb of the manao. And by the combination of the 2 of them and the intention to express outward that the mane intention symbolizes, the mane would be viewed as the part-1. It would be viewed as the divine masculine, and it would be the divine spark, or the sperm that fertilized the egg. It's the light that actually was birthed through the combination of the sound, or the vibration, and the void. These all connect to all of the Trinity things that we've learned of how things go in 3 sets of dimensions, and all of this. All of this was set by this original, the original Akasha, the original God force intention, the original will of God made manifest. And what's nice to know is it's not something that was done way long ago and it's gone now, and it's just in fond memory. It's there with us. It's the reason we breathe. What they're also referred to as the pause breath, still point, the in-breath, ire, and the out-breath, mane. The in-breath, the out-breath, and the pause breath of God. These are the primal circulatory system of consciousness that moves through us all the time. This is what our heart rhythms are set from. This is what our breathing rhythms are set from. These are the forces that make those things go. So they're not far away at all. Now, okay, so when you begin teaching this, we would start here instead of trying to figure out where to start with your Kathara manual. It's like, well, I could teach them about, do I just follow that structure? What do I do first? Start with the consciousness forces. Before, we didn't have the ability to use the Vecca codes because certain things had to be activated in the planetary grids before you could use them. They are progressively activating now. That's why this information is being given to us. Because now, when we use these mathematical codings, these things that look like symbols, pretty symbols to play with, when we use them, they will actually make the changes they're supposed to now because the planetary grids have them activated in them. And we help to activate them more in the planetary grids when we use them. Now, if we get through the basic 3, the basic trinity, the manao, the ire, and the mane, the akasha, right? This, you'll have a copy of this thing. It's just explaining about the in-breath and the out-breath of God, the things I just spoke about. And you can, for the training things, when you're doing the training ones, you can use this, like if you have a video or an audio of this workshop, you can use it if you want to. But you don't have to. You can just use like the basic outlines and remember what you were taught and feel it out for yourself and try to explain it, in your own terms. But the basic trinity, the primal life force field. This is the force, the will of intention. And this is how these three intentions came together in the mind of God to create the whole structure. And of course, once you got that, the intention and the consciousness behind anything that was created, then you would go into primal substance and primal order. But you don't have to do it in as heavy technical terms. And if they want heavy technical, tell them to buy Cathar manual. They can read it there if they want to find out more about, really part-Chi phasing and flashline sequences and some of the more complicated stuff. You can tell them a little bit about it, but you can do it easily, more easily, by just giving them bits of how those pieces fit together, but focusing on the consciousness, the force, because this is what people miss the most. We need to know the structure if we're going to learn how to wake the force up. But what people go into spiritual development for, why people get spiritual, is because they feel a part of themselves missing. People that feel completely whole don't need to get spiritual. They already are. They don't worry about it. They don't go after it. They just feel it. Whatever their capacity is, they're there. They don't really care because they feel it. When you get on a spiritual path, you're there because there's a void. You're feeling a void, a desire for something that isn't there. And that's what motivates you. So anyway, as we go on, we'll go take them from the primal life force fields to emanations of the Akasha. Now, the emanations, the things that emanate outward from the Akasha. And of course, the Akasha being the Manau, the Ire, and the Mane. Right? Emanations of the Akasha. Here we go. This looks familiar. part-Chi, part-K, and part-Cum. And then you simply would, let me put that one up real quick. I'm probably going to whip through these really fast just to show them, the sequence. All right, I'm going to put this one back up. You'll be fine. I just tend to talk forever. Yeah, I'll put this. Yeah, I might refer back to this one, so let's keep that. Okay, you keep it there. So you would simply go into, I need to look at this one actually while we're doing this, because I want to connect the two. Okay. Yeah, there's something, wait, I can look at, yeah, that works. Thank you. Yeah, backwards doesn't work. Alrighty. So you'd show them this particular one, and if time holds out for me and I don't collapse first, we should have this sequence, like the sequence of the paperwork that I'm going to go through today and the stuff that I'm going to have to do tonight to have it for tomorrow. You should have this in a chart pack. So you at least have a little booklet that you don't have to pull out your Templar manual and your Cathar manual and start whipping pages all over the place to try to figure out how you're going to make something simple. It'll be a simple enough manual, but it's also the most sophisticated of the teachings that are here yet. So you'd start with simple part-Chi, part-K, and part-Cum. You have your part-Chi antimatter units, which are the intention. They first start as the intention of the Manau force. That is the first intention. It creates a thought crystal, a crystallization of idea before it becomes a manifest thing. That's the first part-Chi, I need to rip over my lips, first part-Chi, first antimatter unit that is not quite manifest yet. This is the non-manifest part of manifestation. This is the embodiment of the Manau. And from that come fields and fields of part-Chi units. And the part-Chi units are a total reflection of the original Divine Trinity. You have the part-Chi that would represent the Manau. And within the part-Chi are created the part-Cum, which would be the equivalent of the Ire, and the part-K, which would be the equivalent of the Mane. So these are the forces of consciousness. This is the dynamic of interaction, let's say thought interaction, that is taking place between the Mane, the Ire, and the Manau. So simply make the connection for them that, okay, we talked about Manau, Ire, and Mane. You can word that another way. You can put that part-K, part-Chi, part-Cum. And what these things are, these are the first. The part-Chi unit, being the Manau unit, is the part that stays non-manifest. These things become like little light bulbs. And the light bulb analogy is a wonderful way to get a very difficult concept across pretty easy to people who really don't want to know physics. There are some people that really don't want to know. And we'll get into light bulbs, how if you can help them think of consciousness, the Mano, the Mano, Mane, and Ire, as taking on a form that resembles light bulbs. All right? The first would be a thought of a light bulb, and the light bulb's not turned on. But then there would be little light bulbs created when it's almost like thoughts, like neurons firing in the brain. Okay? When the Mano decides to create, it perpetually repeats its original intention, the original intention of God that it had, which was to create. And one part of it wanted to create outward, and the other wanted to pull that back. That divine trinity continually recreates itself. That creation takes place in the form of Partikai, Partike, and Particum, which are tiny little units of consciousness made out of the forces, the Mano, the Mane, and the Ire. All right? That's what these things are made out of. We called them before units of consciousness. Well, this is whose consciousness they're units of. All right? These are the beingness behind the structure of the manifestation. And as we explained in the earlier teachings, that these form little fixed points of light and sound. First, it's a vibration. When it's in its vibration state, it's actually in the antimatter state. That would be the first. If you compare that to the Mano, which is not even quite yet a vibration, it's the thought of a vibration. And then the female would be the first vibration, the sound. You can still compare the Partikai antimatter to the Mano force and consider it as the thought of vibration. And from that thought of vibration, there comes vibration and oscillation. There comes a standing scalar wave point, a simple little light bulb. A light bulb of consciousness that turns off and goes back into its Mano state. And when it flashes on, it actually becomes two light bulbs that sit next to each other. And they flash off and on. This is how you can get the concept of Partikai, Partike, and Particum across to people. It helps to connect these things, because if they can understand these basic building blocks, the basic units of consciousness that form the structures will make more sense. If you try to teach the structures, you have chakras, and you have auric fields, and you have these things, it's like, okay, there's something missing. What are they made out of? Right? Well, they're made out of consciousness. Okay. What kind of consciousness? Whose consciousness? Where'd that come from? This is a way to try to connect right back from where the no thing is, other than the desire and the intention in the Mano, the Mane, and the Ire, right down into the structure, where you can learn enough about your structure to remember how to use yourself, your parts, so you can get your direct life force back into your bodies. All right, so that, okay, you have this field of little light bulbs that turn off and on at different rhythms. Some go on while others go off. And where these flashes, they're all like fixed. They're actually not moving. They just flash off and on. But what it appears as, because of the sequences and the syncopation of what ones flash when, it actually creates the illusion of movement. When consciousness takes on the form of this grid of light bulbs and begins this little dance of life, where it begins to flash off and on in the sequences that are set by the mathematical programs of the Mano, the Mane, and the Ire, it begins to experience the dance, even though everything is really standing still. We'll talk about terms of spiraling currents, but what's really spiraling is the consciousness. All right? Now, we can use the terms spiraling. We don't have to get, especially if you're trying to teach it to new people, or like people that haven't had any exposure to it. If you get into the concept, well, you have these flowing and spiraling currents, aka that means movement, right? Well, the only movement is this, pulsing, flashing off and on, like the heartbeat of God. It gets a little confusing. Well, I thought the current was supposed to flow, but if it's not moving, how does it flow? Right? It flashes on and off. Picture frozen water going into your body instead of, right? There's a difference. Now, it's worth, if you really want to teach the dance of life, if you really want to teach it where you're going to go into workshops and you're going to have people there, they're going to say, oh yeah, how's that work? You know what I mean? Like people that haven't read anything, that are just curious about what this might be, they're going to throw all sorts of stuff at you. They're going to, questions, you're going to be like, uh-oh. If you don't know how to answer them, you'll lose them. You know, because it's really, if you really want to do, like, if you want to make a job out of it, if you want to do workshops and, you know, get paid for doing workshops where, it's fine to get paid for workshops if you're giving people something that's worth paying for. And unfortunately, most of the time, you're not the one that decides that. It's going to be them. You know, if you're not giving them what they want, which is answers to the questions that they have, and an understanding that they can take and use, they're not going to come back. They're not going to like you as a teacher, and you're going to kind of feel frustrated. So it will help if you take enough time to learn, like, you know, look through your Cathara manual a bit more. Fix on, well, okay, what is a flashline sequence? If somebody asked you that, what is a flashline sequence? How many people could answer that right off the top of their heads? That's good. Really? Oh, come on. You know, you're being modest. You know? Yeah, that works. Yep. Flashing off and on of a fixed grid of light bulbs, and each dimension, right, is one line of light bulbs that has one flashing on and off rhythm, and then the next dimension has, D1 would be one line of flashing, D2 would be that line from D1 plus another one, so it would have twice as many flashing on and offs. All right. Now what these flashing on and off things do, this is called, that's a simple way to explain Partakai phasing. Because what is creating the flashing on and off is that. You have that cycle of Partakai phasing where the Partakai goes from being an antimatter, where it's really not in matter, especially when you get up into the higher, like the vibrational fields, the primal fields. It's not even in matter. It's in Manau. It's in the thought of being in matter. And then it flashes on. This is your light bulb flashing on and off. So what you are explaining to someone when you're talking about flashline sequences is the sophisticated concept of Partakai phasing, how these primal units of consciousness and substance begin to, you know, before substance, begin to interact with each other while standing still. And there's a pulse of consciousness that keeps this going. And this is why, and this is the verification, that God is alive and well. Because if there wasn't a pulse, a movement of consciousness that kept Partakai's phasing, none of us would be here. There would be a field of no thing that had no awareness of itself. There would be no awareness. So anyway, to keep it simple, take people through as much as you can with Partakai, Partake, and Particum, just so they're familiar at least with the terms, because they come up a lot. You know, when you learn more, they do come up a lot, and it does help to understand that they are just a representative form of the divine trinity of the forces, which are the Manau, the Mane, and the Ire. Okay, and the Partakai build up, and they begin to, the flashlines start to interact with each other, and they actually begin to spark more Partakai units into manifestation, where they accrete, or bring more out of the non-manifest worlds, out of the Manau, and out of the Ire, and out of the Mane. They bring more of like thoughts, like intentions, like vibrations into manifestation, and fill out what used to be just one thought, fills out to become many similar thoughts. And those thoughts become many Partakai, many scalar standing waves that progressively interact with each other. And the more they interact with each other, the more they draw out of the Manau, the more they draw out into manifestation. As we move through the teachings today, we're going to get into what the Manau and the Ire and the Mane have to do with your creation process. Because these are your forces, your powers, the powers that were given to you and entrusted to you by God, the part of you that's up there now still. These are the forces that you create with thought. There's a process of using what are called the sacred Surya songs. The sacred movement, Surya means movement, divine movement. Son, P-S-O-N-N, is a divine song that has to do with firing Partakai, Partake, and Particum, or Manau, Ire, and Mane, into manifestation. There's an exercise that we're going to do today, probably toward the end, that is, we're going to learn some magic words. That's what it comes down to. Some more songs. Yes, these are the Manau songs. These are the beginnings of activating, doing the tonal activations that bring back those portions of you that are Manau, Ire, and Mane into your body. And they are the commands that if you desire to manifest something, and it takes practice, especially when the first thing you need to manifest is getting your radial body cleared. So when you manifest, you get what you want instead of its opposite. because there's that extra level of polarization there. So every time we think a thought and say, I'm going to make that happen, you get part of this, and the other part goes the opposite way, and it does something else completely different, and it almost neutralizes what you were trying to create. That was a little setup that was done here on the planet by the fallen angelics. So we literally neutralize ourselves when we try to create. We have a little minimum bit of creative power that's running through, but the rest bounces into itself and demanifests. So we can't, we have a very difficult time directly manifesting stuff with our thoughts. The exercise today, now this was the last thing that they gave me before I finally surrendered and let the computer win, because we were having a battle all night with the computer. But I was glad that I stayed with it long enough to bring this so we'd have this to work with today. There is a string of sound tones, vibrations, that go with each of these primal currents. And I call them primal currents because these are the consciousness that are within and surrounding the things that we have called primal life force currents. These are the life force that's of the currents, that makes the currents happen, that we've talked about before, the currents. Okay. We're going to learn how to begin using, and there's lots of levels to this. This is just the beginning. It's like getting the car keys for the first time when you're a teenager, right? Oh boy, they're going to let me drive the car, I studied enough, and, they know, well, I'm past my driver's test, but I got it. I'm going to be able to take it, and they're not going to be with me, and nobody's going to be watching. I can drive the car. This is like one of those kind of things where it's the beginning. It's like kind of saying, yes, you can drive the car for 2 hours. Be back, and if you haven't crashed into anything, you might be able to go again. These are the beginning exercises. If we were given sophisticated ones, it would be so sophisticated we couldn't even make the sounds yet. There are sounds we will learn how to make. The more we work with these sounds and begin to integrate and wake these up inside of us, more sounds will come. We'll start to hear the silent symphony that's taking place around us, and we'll start to feel it as well. But by the time we get to this exercise, we'll know what a radial body is, we'll understand what it is that we're doing, and then we'll get to start to have some fun. And what's going to be really funny is I'm supposed to teach this to you, and I just got them down on paper too. So it's going to be one of those where you put them up there and go, ah, hey, ho, no, that's a small A. Okay. So we'll learn these together. And what's interesting, the power comes when they are memorized. And there's a very specific sequence to using them. One is for embedding the thought you want to manifest into the man-now. The man-now is a part of God that has given itself to you and says, I will co-create with you, whatever you put in me. Yes, this is why things like fallen angelics and phantom matrices and those kind of nasty things can happen, because it was given in complete and utter love and allowance. This is why the man-now force can be abused. God allows that, because the man-now force was created of pure, unconditional love, and it gave the gift of free will and the gift of free will choice. So the fullness of the man-now can never be harmed or abused. But the parts of it that run through the lower dimensional fields can be twisted, and it can be used in ways that create harm instead of good. There were ancient mystical schools that were built on, in fact, I think some of them were satanic. They were built on using the man-now in reverse to make stuff happen and to force one's will on other things. And as long as you could hold more man-now power, you could override and take advantage of someone else. This is an abuse of the man-now power. And eventually that comes back to you with a vengeance. I think it's about 3.5 times. Whatever you put into it, you'll get back. Because the man-now will bounce back to you, whatever it is you created, whatever your intention was. If you're intending loving co-creation that honors other beings, you will find the universe progressively just appears to like you more and more. You'll tend to get more positive feedback coming back to you. Now that doesn't work as well as it's supposed to down here because of the reversals. We talked about the eye of the jackal yesterday. This is a reversing lens that literally takes what should be one beam of consciousness that comes in and splits it and makes it interface with itself and create a static field where the flow stops and it gets blocked. But fortunately, it's these frequencies themselves that will be able to clear and heal this. And it's the process of using them. We don't have to spend 5 years trying to figure out how to heal the mess so we can use our power. All we need to know is what the power is, how to use it appropriately, how to direct it, and it will do the healing in the using it. So we're beginning now to enter a really interesting space. There's going to be, I can tell, this is going to be probably a very interesting year of each dispensation of the teachings, because first we'll learn to use it this way. And then there will be more and more other ways we can learn to use it. And I can't wait till we have the manifesting money one. I really can't. I know there's going to be a workshop. And I keep asking them. I say, I don't care. I don't even care if we don't ever get any. Okay, if it's like not great to have money, I don't care. Whatever the answer to this is, I just want to know it and I want to teach it. You know what I mean? That's what so many people, that is where the freedom goes right down the drain here. You know, because if you don't have this Anunnaki created thing, because the money systems are Nibiruan, they were not, humans never ever used money or even barter the way it's used here. Creators who can manifest stuff don't have to. They just make it happen. Poof, it's there. You know? So anyway, I want to move through these. Again, I'm going to move through these fast here, right? I go on my tangents. But what do they say about the money thing? Well, Ma'a kind of grins at me, and he just gives me this big grin, like, you'll figure it out eventually. So I'm getting the feeling that, and I've learned one of the tricks that I've learned, money becomes less and less of an issue in my existence when I make it less and less of an issue in my existence. I've spent most of my time in my existence. Now, I left home when I was 14 and a half, 15, and I had my own apartment then. I was not even in 10th grade. I dropped out of school in 10th grade, and I worked at what they call junk jobs for quite a long time. When I was 17, I got married and had my first child, and still worked at junk jobs for a very, very long time. And then, of course, all during this time, I was talking to guardians. They never gave me lottery numbers. They never magically fixed it for me. But they talked to me all the time, and they helped me to understand the lessons, why I was allowing the creation to be what it was. There were certain things that if I had, let's say, evolved this lifetime, where I was sitting in the lap of luxury and I could have anything I wanted anytime I wanted, and I got to think about what I want, what do I want, what do I want. I didn't. I got to think about what do my kids need, what do my kids need, what do they need, who needs what, you know. I mean, I didn't get any chance to think about me in this life, and that was good because it taught me some very, very valuable things. So I know one of the tricks to the money thing is getting to the point where it is not an issue, that whatever it is, you need to express something, come money or no money, come hell or high water, you're gonna. And you know that the universe will help you. You can feel it. Yeah. And it's funny, that's usually when the money just appears. Yeah, just out of nowhere, left field, where did that come from? I couldn't have manifested that if I tried consciously. So there's a trick to the money thing where you set the intention of what you desire and you trust the universe to find the way and the method. Yes? Sure, excuse me. They go and they're supposed to be in a certain time frame, or I mess up their schedule. So we have about 15 minutes more. We'll do this for 15 minutes, and then we're going to have to break for lunch too, so we don't end up getting the catering people upset with us. Anyway, the money issue, I will leave off on that. I want to do a whole workshop on that at some point. But there are certain subtleties about the whole thing. I understand certain manifestation processes, and I know what works. I know that trust. Put out the intention, and visualize what you want instead of the money. Like, focus on the thing. If it's a house, feel yourself in that house. Look out your window in that house. See the sunshine in your garden. If you want to move to another country, see people wearing the traditional garb walking out your window, right? See the deed of a house in your hand with your name on it. Things like this, okay? That makes it yours here, not just a house you're visiting by accident, like, whoops, I manifested it, but it belonged to her, and I can't live there. You can have those happen, too. Now, there are some other things that have to do with money that go very, very deep. This is why we haven't even really touched a workshop on that yet. It goes back into things that go back. This is the beginning. What we're going to learn this time, this workshop, about understanding what's happening in our atoms. Believe it or not, the whole money system is connected to our atoms. There's something happening, and it has been done on this planet, that was done on Nibiru, that began with using elemental gold in certain ways to transfer certain things. Right now, there's a whole movement to bring back the Nibiruan gem called white powder gold, monatomic gold. This did the same thing that they used money for on Nibiru. The whole money system was created here. There's a whole level of really heavy, deep physics stuff that goes into what this money system is really about. So it's not that money is evil or bad. Money is just an idea. But for us to get to the point where we would, bring you a workshop on how to create money, I would want to have the usual level of detail where I could put all of those pieces together. And I haven't been able to get them all yet. I mean, I have like blocks of history on Nibiru and how it was used to, gold was the original thing, and it was used to literally suck life force out of people and transfer it from one to another. Parents on Nibiru, when they had a child, they had to literally, the government would give them a dowry, and they had to take that gold and charge it. Whoops. Oh, cool. Hello. And charge it. Thank you. And they would literally take the gold, and they had it treated in a certain way. They would take the gold, and the parents would have to hold the golden, like they were coins. This is where coins came from. They made the gold elements flat enough where you could take it and hold it up against the child's chest, heart chakra, so it could suck the energy, part of the life field energy, out of them. And then that gold would be collected. This is where taxes came from. They came from Nibiru. It would be collected and taken back to the elite ones, who would then use it to take that life force, because they had reverse matrices in their DNA, and they had to feed. It was one of their feeding methods. Yeah, I mean, talk about a workshop about money. When they started giving me this, I was like, oh my God, like, oh my goodness, what? This is like heavy. This is like deep stuff. I got tired after like I think I had about 40 pages on it. And I was like, oh my God, I think it was bad here, go to live on Nibiru. It's like a lot worse. But right now the gold stuff is happening. If you notice, we're not allowed to have it anymore here. Yeah, it's been hidden in certain places that are called treasuries. There are certain places that there are large amounts of gold being stored, just like on Nibiru during stellar activation cycles. There would be large things. They'd have their coin circulation for their basic energy vampiring, but gold holds frequency. Photosonic frequency. All right, more than just like, you can use it with electricity. This is photosonics. These are the light sound, the primal light sound frequencies. Gold is one of the elements that can hold tremendous amounts of them, and it can transmit them if you know how to use it right. The idea of making gold statues, Nibiru had massive gold statues that would hold huge amounts of standing scalar waves that the people in control of the statues would use to control the other people. Right now, gold is being collected and put away in very safe places on the planet, places that just happen to be connected to major grid lines in the planetary grids. All right? Because gold holds frequency, and it can transmit whatever's put into it. If you transmit reversal, if you are on a planet and that planet has a reverse Merkaba, all the elements pick up that reverse Merkaba. So right now, gold is a very nice transmitter of reversal, of the reverse mathematical currents. So anyway, this is why I'm not going to do a workshop on money right now. There are considerations that need to be looked at. It goes into not just gold, but gold, silver, precious gems, diamonds, these kind of things. What do these things really do to us? What are these things? I mean, they look like pretty little things out here, but what is this really in our hologram? So there's going to be at some point a workshop that will deal with that, but that's not today, So anyway, to answer that.